Hey guys. Tonight's story starts with a fire that promised warmth, but died quicker than your optimism. A mattress that crackles like a hay bale with commitment issues, and the unmistakable stench of someone's feet dangerously close to your face. You're surrounded by strangers, pressed together for body heat, but all you can think is how the Lord upstairs is sleeping on feathers while you're bargaining with frostbite. But before you get too cozy, take a second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just added. It really does help little guys like me push through the algorithm. And take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling, and drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You don't own the bed. The Lord owns the bed. You're allowed to sleep in it only because someone died or married someone richer. You tiptoe into the room like it's holy ground. The bed is large, looming, and smells faintly of dried herbs and farts from 3 dynasties ago. It creaks even when you think about touching it. The curtains are moth-eaten but dramatic. The posts are carved with lions or maybe badly remembered dogs. Either way, they're judging you. You don't belong here, and they know it. Your boots are muddy. You were told not to bring mud into the chamber, but it is impossible not to when the entire world outside is made of it. You try to scrape them against the threshold. It helps nothing. The stone floor has no warmth, no kindness, no forgiveness. Your breath is a visible thing, puffing out in small bursts of hope that someone will take pity and bring hot coals. They won't. The fire has been dead since supper. A single ember glows in the ashes like a dying eye, and even it looks disappointed in you. You consider poking it with the iron poker, but the poker is cold, and your fingers are stiff, and honestly, you're not entirely sure how fires work. There's a pile of what might be wood in the corner, or might be kindling-shaped mushrooms. Either way, it's damp. You stare at the bed like it's a bear you've been asked to cuddle. It is a 4-poster monster draped in faded red velvet that once saw better days and possibly better centuries. The mattress is stuffed with straw and the broken dreams of footmen. It sags in the middle like it remembers who slept here last and is still recovering. The blanket is made of wool, or at least something that once met wool in a dark alley and never looked back. You reach out and touch it. It hisses, or maybe that was your sleeve brushing against your own frostbitten skin. There are 2 pillows. One is hard enough to qualify as a building material. The other is soft in a way that suggests mold. You pick the harder one. If you're going to suffer, it might as well be with dignity. You peel back the blanket and uncover a small spider, curled up like it too has earned this space. You apologize, then flick it gently to the corner, where it can resume its tiny, shivering judgment. You sit on the edge of the bed and it groans under your weight. Not a squeak, a groan, a long, slow, haunted noise that sounds like someone dying of taxes. You freeze, hoping no one heard. From the hallway, silence. A dog barks outside. Or maybe it's a wolf. Or the steward again. Hard to tell. You begin undressing. You shouldn't. The room is colder than sin and only slightly more hospitable. But someone once told you that sleep is better when you're not wearing 3 layers of peasant wool. You remove 1 layer and immediately regret it. The chill wraps around you like a bad decision and you scramble under the covers with all the grace of a frightened duck. The blanket is not warm. It is damp and coarse and smells faintly of old broth and unspoken secrets. You curl up, knees to chest, trying to generate enough internal heat to avoid death. The mattress rustles ominously, possibly settling, possibly alive. You hear a thump from the wall behind you. You freeze again. The castle is full of noises. Some are mice, some are people, some are regrets that never left. You close your eyes and hope it was nothing that wants to borrow money. Time passes like a stubborn goat. You think about warmth, about summer, about the one time you accidentally stood too close to the smithy's forge and briefly knew what comfort felt like. You try to think happy thoughts. The kitchen at midday, warm bread, a sleepy pig in the sun, a bath, theoretically. It doesn't help. You're still shivering. Your teeth begin a quiet protest, chattering in Morse code for help. A cough sounds from somewhere down the hall. Then another. A chain reaction of wheezing. One person sneezes like a cannon. You hear someone mutter something about plague, but with the tone of someone who is more annoyed than concerned. The castle is alive with nighttime unrest. Floors creak, shutters rattle. Something drips in a way that suggests future mold lawsuits. You are not asleep. You shift. The bed shifts back. The sag in the middle pulls at you like a sad gravity well, and you find yourself sliding toward the center, where centuries of sleepers have left their imprint, their sweat, and possibly their teeth. You try to resist. The bed insists. You settle in with a sigh, cradled awkwardly between two lumpy zones of past discomfort. You wrap yourself tighter in the blanket. It refuses to wrap back. A breeze sneaks in through the window like a thief. Cold fingers tracing your spine. You clutch the blanket higher. It slides off your toes. You retuck. It escapes. The blanket is at war with you. You whisper a curse. It retaliates with itchiness. You pull your hood over your head. It falls in your face. You are wrapped in cloth and misery and cold. Eventually, you drift. Not asleep, but into that strange in-between state where time bends and thoughts slow and the darkness doesn't feel quite so sharp. The sounds blur. The chill dulls. Your body gives up before your mind does. You dream of a fire that doesn't go out, of a bed that smells like lavender and not foot, of waking up without a stiff neck and a mysterious rash. But just before you fall completely into sleep, the bed shifts. Again, a new weight, a draft of cold air. You open one eye and see a figure slipping under the blanket beside you. You startle, and they shush you. "Just the scullery maid," she whispers, already half asleep. "This bed's warmest in the castle." You blink. You nod. You scoot over. You do not own the bed. But you're not the only one pretending you do. You lie in a room made of stone, colder than a priest's handshake. The walls weep. Your breath fogs like a ghost with performance anxiety. The fire has gone out. Again, you pretend you don't care. You care deeply. The cold is not just a feeling, it's a presence. It sits beside you like a judgmental ant, close enough to criticize, far enough to avoid responsibility. It slides under your tunic like it pays rent. You pull the wool blanket tighter around your shoulders and stare at the hearth, which contains exactly one small, sulking log and a pile of ashes that seem to whisper, "You had your chance." The room is not heated. It's not even trying. If it had once been heated, it has long since repented and returned to its natural state of penitential frost. The walls are thick and gray and old enough to remember plagues. They ooze dampness from somewhere deep in their bones. Water trickles down the inside of the window, not because of rain, but because the air inside the room is so sad it's crying. The window has no glass, just a wooden shutter that doesn't quite close, so the wind whistles cheerfully through the cracks, as if to say, "I brought friends." You curl into yourself like a poorly folded tunic. Your fingers have stopped functioning like fingers, and now operate more like decorative sticks. You try rubbing them together, then under your arms, then between your thighs, which earns you a suspicious look from a sleeping dog at the foot of the bed. You're not sure whose dog it is. It might be the Lord's, it might be the baker's, it might be cold hallucination. You name it, Walter, for comfort. There are tapestries on the wall, but they do nothing. They hang there like sullen nobles, all embroidered and useless. One depicts a battle, another, a unicorn. Both look like they'd be warmer than you are. You consider taking one down and wrapping yourself in it, but last time someone did that, the steward made them scrub chamber pots for a fortnight and cursed their name during dinner. Still, you look at the unicorn tapestry with longing. Its horn gleams. It mocks you. Somewhere in the rafters, something rustles. It could be a bird. It could be a ghost. It could be that rat you saw yesterday who walks like he pays taxes. You don't care. If it's warm, you'll invite it down for a cuddle and a quiet existential scream. You breathe into your hands, which is about as effective as asking the cold politely to leave. The cold stays. It thrives. You glance at the fireplace again. There is a poker. There are some twigs. There is the single log, which is probably pine, which means it will smoke more than it burns. You think about trying. You also think about the last time you tried, when the smoke filled the room and the matron screamed about bringing death to the curtains. The curtains were already mostly holes in regret, but you apologized anyway. The scullery boy laughed for 3 days. You consider hitting him with the log. Your nose is numb. Your ears are worse. You pull your hat down further until it nearly covers your eyes. Now you can't see, but that's fine. There's nothing to see. Just a bed that resents you, a hearth that's abandoned you, and walls that have probably considered homicide. Your toes are a mystery. You haven't felt them in hours. They may have left. You whisper their names just in case they can still hear you. The dog, Walter, sighs. He lifts his head, looks at you, and then shifts onto your blanket, effectively claiming the one warm spot left. You reach for it. He growls. You yield. The cold teaches you humility. Voices rise from the hallway. Someone has found the wine. Someone else is arguing about apples. There is laughter, sharp and high, the kind that comes from people who are not in your room. You imagine they are near a fire. You imagine they are not wearing 4 layers and contemplating the possibility of freezing mid-thought. You envy them so hard it makes your teeth ache. There is a bed warmer in the corner, an iron pan with a long handle, once used to hold coals and slide between the sheets to heat them. It has not been used in years. The handle is bent. The lid doesn't close. You once tried to use it and almost set your socks on fire. You've been warned not to touch it again. Still, you glance at it now like a forbidden lover. It winks at you, or maybe you're delirious. You get up. It takes effort. Your knees complain. Your joints sound like a blacksmith's workshop. You shuffle to the hearth and poke at the log. It sulks harder. You add a few twigs. Nothing. You breathe on the ember like you believe in miracles. A faint glow returns. You puff again. Smoke curls up, black and slow. It smells like hope and futility. You sneeze. The ember dies. You return to the bed. Walter has taken your spot entirely. You nudge him. He ignores you. You lie beside him like a disappointed spoon. You tuck your hands under your thighs. You hum a little tune to yourself, something your grandmother sang while kneading dough. It does not make you warmer, but it distracts you from the way your breath is now fogging against your own hat. At some point, you drift into a half-sleep. In your dream, there's a roaring fire, a mug of hot broth, a blanket that covers your entire body at once. You are warm. You are fed. You are wearing socks made of cloud and glory. Then Walter sneezes on your face, and you wake up gasping. The room is still not heated, but you're alive. Mostly, probably. You curl tighter, whisper a few words to the unicorn tapestry for luck, and try to sleep before the cold remembers how to bite harder. The wind rattles the shutter. Walter farts. The night continues. You wake up between a tanner and a man who introduced himself only as Toad. Toad snores in Latin. The tanner keeps muttering about goats. You do not ask questions. You do not sleep much. There is a distinct smell of onions and old wool. Someone's feet are dangerously close to your head, and they are not clean feet. You try to reposition yourself without waking anyone or inhaling. You fail at both. Toad shifts and lets out a noise that sounds like a drowning hymn. The tanner mutters something about udders and then sighs contentedly, like this is the best sleep he's ever had. You envy his peace. You do not trust it. The bed is wide enough for 2. There are 6 of you. No one knows why. It started with just you and the tanner, who arrived carrying a small bag and a large attitude. Then Toad showed up and simply got in without asking, announcing, "I dream in the language of the saints," which made no one feel safer. Then there was the merchant's nephew who claimed he was promised a spot, though you're fairly certain he misunderstood the phrase, "any room at all." After that, a woman with elbows sharper than politics slid in at midnight and claimed the warmest part of the blanket like it owed her money. And finally, a silent man wearing a hat indoors and no visible remorse climbed in just before dawn, smelling faintly of beeswax and murder. You're fairly sure you're not supposed to be here either, so you don't protest. Sleeping in a shared bed is standard practice, people keep telling you. For warmth, they say. For community, they insist. Because there's nowhere else, they admit eventually. You miss privacy. You miss silence. You miss knowing whose leg is on your leg. Toad twitches. The twitch turns into a kick. His foot lands squarely against your calf with the energy of a minor theological disagreement. You yelp softly. The woman groans and pulls the blanket further toward her. This exposes your back to the night air, which smells like hay, wine, and betrayal. You tug the blanket back gently. She slaps your hand. You consider legal action, but remember you have no rights. There is no clear division of space. It's a communal pile of limbs and breath and resentment. The tanner, who has somehow turned fully sideways during the night, now has one leg over your stomach and the other off the bed entirely. He mumbles about hooves and gives your hip a reassuring pat before settling into a wheezy snore. You do not know if the pat was accidental. You do not want to know. The mattress is stuffed with straw and melancholy. It pokes through the sheets in ways that suggest malice. Every time you shift, you discover a new part of your body that can itch. The sheet itself is more philosophy than fabric, something that used to be linen, but has long since lost the will to live. It slides uselessly beneath you, doing nothing to separate you from the straw or the consequences of your choices. You try to lie still. You try to breathe through your mouth. This is a mistake. The air is heavy with the scent of garlic, feet, and something sweet and rotten you hope is just a forgotten apple. Someone's hand rests lightly on your shoulder. It is not comforting. It is not familiar. You turn your head just enough to see that it belongs to the merchant's nephew, who is still wearing his belt and a smug expression. You briefly consider biting him. A cough erupts from the far end of the bed. It's wet and dramatic. The hat-wearing man doesn't react. He lies perfectly still, eyes open, like a crypt keeper on sabbatical. You suspect he doesn't blink. You suspect many things about him, including that he might not leave in the morning. You edge slightly away, but this moves you closer to Toad, who has now begun humming. You recognize the tune. It's Ave Maria. He is humming it through his nose. The candle burned out hours ago. The moonlight spills faintly through a slit in the stone wall, catching on the outline of someone's foot, which is disturbingly close to your chin. You shift again, trying to find a pocket of space that doesn't smell like someone's dreams. You fail. You resign yourself to breathing shallowly and thinking fondly of solitary confinement. Outside, a rooster crows too early, too confident. The sound slices through the darkness like an accusation. Someone groans. The tanner swears softly. The woman mutters something about stabbing poultry. The bed stirs. Toad rolls over and lays an arm across your chest. You lie perfectly still and pretend to be dead. It seems easier. Eventually, the room begins to wake. Slowly, resentfully, like a bear who realizes it must socialize. The woman stretches and cracks every joint in her body. The merchant's nephew mumbles about a dream involving fish and inheritance. The tanner scratches himself in 3 different places and spits into a corner. Toad sits up and immediately starts recounting a vision he had in the night, something involving angels and a bread cart. No one listens. The hat man says nothing. He simply stands and leaves, the way fog leaves a field without explanation. You get up, sore and lightly traumatized. Your tunic is twisted. Your dignity is scattered. Your hair is matted to one side, and your left arm has forgotten how to feel things. You shake it out. It makes a noise, like regret. You glance around at your temporary bedmates. No one looks rested. Everyone looks like they've been gently trampled by emotionally unstable livestock. It's a kind of bonding, you suppose. You gather your blanket and what's left of your personal space and exit into the hallway, which is only marginally warmer but smells less like dreams and onions. You hear someone snore behind you. It might be Toad. It might be you. You're not entirely sure you didn't leave your soul in that bed. You pat your chest just to check. You do not know these people. You did not choose them. But in the cold, in the stone belly of the castle, they are your heat, your noise, your nightly burden. You will lie among them again tonight. You will fight for the blanket. You will wake up sore and resentful and strangely grateful that you weren't alone. You share with strangers. You wish you didn't. But the bed is warm and the night is long. The blanket is a felted heap of wool, cat hair, and questionable ambition. It weighs more than most marriages and smells like someone boiled cheese in it last century. You cling to it like a knight to his last prayer. It does not cling back. It drapes over you with the enthusiasm of a disgruntled ghost, heavy in places that don't help and drafty in every place that matters. You shift beneath it. It shifts away. You try tucking it under your legs. It somehow becomes shorter. You pull it over your chest and your feet immediately protest in cold Morse code. There is no victory here. Only temporary ceasefires with your own mortality. It's not even your blanket. It was issued to you, in the way leeches are issued during plagues, with good intentions and low expectations. It was waiting for you on the bed when you arrived, folded with passive aggression. There was a stain on the corner shaped like regret. You ignored it. You had to. You needed hope. You didn't know it was going to be like this. By weight alone, it should be warm. If warmth were a matter of mass, you'd be sweating like a roasted goose. But this blanket has no interest in heat retention. It exists in defiance of logic. It is a singularity of deception, a thermal black hole. The air beneath it is colder than the air outside. You think about checking to see if someone cursed it. Then you remember the laundry boy whispering to it before he handed it over. You thought he was humming. You realize now he was warning it. You curl tighter, trying to make yourself small. This doesn't help. Your knees poke out. Your shoulders freeze. Your back sweats. The blanket's inner climate is unstable and cruel, like a badly governed kingdom. At one point, it feels warm for 6 seconds. You dare to hope. Then a breeze snakes through the fabric like a petty rumor and chills your spine from neck to butt. You whimper. It laughs. You can hear it. The blanket has opinions. Your bedmates stir. Toad mutters something about beetles. The tanner releases a slow, painful snore. The woman elbows you in the ribs, not out of malice, but because her dream involves rowing a boat, and you are apparently water. The blanket slides down again. You yank it back. It retaliates by bunching at your hip in a knot that feels legally binding. You lie still, crushed by itchy wool and the creeping sense that the blanket is winning. You wonder who made it, who sat at a loom and thought, yes, this will keep the peasants warm while also slowly destroying their will to live. You imagine a workshop full of itchy fabric and spiteful thread. You imagine a man named Oswin cackling as he weaves a strand of boar bristle through the weft. You hate Oswin. You've never met him, but you want to slap his loom and set fire to his yarn. You want to tell him that his blanket is a betrayal wrapped in lint. You try sleeping on your side. The blanket shifts and exposes your back. You roll to your back. Your feet stick out. You pull your knees up. The corner with the stain flops into your face. You taste centuries. You gag softly. The dog, Walter, watches from the foot of the bed with the calm judgment of one who has known better blankets. and better people. Someone gets up to relieve themselves. You envy them their courage. The air beyond the blanket is arctic, sharp enough to shave with. But for a brief moment, as they exit, their body heat is released into the room like a blessing. You bask in it. Then it's gone. You are alone again in a blanket that has never loved you. There's a hole in it, near the top, just big enough to mock you. Cold air funnels through like it knows the way. You try covering the hole with your hand. Your hand goes numb. You use your sleeve. It soaks up the damp and becomes colder. The hole wins. The blanket watches. At some point, your body stops fighting. It doesn't get warm, but it forgets how to be angry. You accept the chill. You make peace with the prickle of the wool and the smell of old dairy. You start to dream. Something about fire, or sun, or possibly just a particularly affectionate goat. But the blanket has one last betrayal in store. As you drift off, it slides, slowly but deliberately, toward the floor. You wake with your knees bare and your dignity frozen. You clutch at the blanket, wrestling it like a disobedient rug. It's twisted into the tanner. He won't let go. You yank. He grunts and rolls over, dragging half of it with him. You're left with a corner and a sense of injustice. You wrap the corner around your shoulder. It doesn't reach. You hiss through your teeth and try to summon heat through rage. It does not work. Dawn comes slowly. Light creeps into the room like it's embarrassed to be here. You hear movement in the hallway. Chambermaids, boots, clinking pots. The castle is waking. You are not rested. You are not warm. You are one with the blanket, and the blanket has made you less. You rise stiffly, peeling the wool monstrosity off like a bad decision. It clings, as if sensing its defeat. You shake it off, and it slaps the floor with a thud that echoes. You swear it huffs at you. You don't look back. The blanket is made of lies, but you know the truth now. And tonight, you plan to steal Walter's. You do not disrobe. Disrobing is for people with fireplaces and inheritances. You sleep in 2 tunics, a borrowed cloak, and a hat shaped like disappointment. You still shiver like a wet dog in a thunderstorm. The fabric layers bunch under your arms and ride up at your waist, but removing anything would feel like inviting death inside for tea. You shift beneath the blanket, which hates you, and adjust your left sock for the 7th time, trying to cover a patch of exposed ankle that the cold has claimed like disputed territory. You have not seen your own skin in days. You fear what it has become, probably brittle, possibly blue. The others in the bed have made similar choices. The tanner wears every item he owns, which includes a fur jerkin, 2 shirts, and something that might be a burlap sack. Toad has somehow acquired mittens. You do not know from where. You did not see them last night. You suspect theft or sorcery, or that he knitted them in his sleep. The woman sleeps wrapped in her own cloak, which she cinched tightly around her neck like a dramatic widow. She hasn't moved in hours. You check that she's breathing. She is, but only just. The merchant's nephew is sweating because he is overcommitted to warmth and is now regretting every layer. You hear him whisper, "Too much," like a fallen knight admitting defeat. You judge him a little, but only a little. Your clothes are stiff in places and suspiciously soft in others. The outer tunic smells faintly of beeswax and boiled cabbage, which is either from the laundry or just how wool decides to age. The borrowed cloak is technically your cousin's, though he doesn't know you borrowed it and probably never will, since you're fairly sure he moved to another village to escape taxes, marriage, or both. It is lined with sheepskin, which has mostly shed. When you tug it tighter, flakes of fluff drift into your mouth. You eat them without thinking. They are the most filling part of your night. The hat is your own invention. You made it from an old sack and part of a sleeve. It has a lopsided peak and droops over your right eye, giving you the look of a disillusioned garden gnome. You keep it on even when the matron tells you hats are not for indoors. She doesn't sleep in this room. She doesn't understand the hat's role in your survival. It holds in the little warmth your body manages to produce, like a sad lid on a sadder pot of soup. When it slips off at night, you wake instantly. Once, it fell to the floor, and Walter used it as a pillow. You let him. He's been through enough. Sleeping in your clothes means you wake up ready. Ready for what? You're not sure. Possibly plague, possibly chores. But at least you don't have to redress. You simply stand and wobble toward your fate like a pre-packed meat pie. The downside is that everything you own now smells like you, and not in the poetic, self-aware way. You smell like someone trapped fear inside wool and forgot it there. When you remove your tunics to wash them monthly, or when they begin to hum, they retain your shape like haunted armor. You tried once to sleep in a shirt alone. It was summer. You were optimistic. You thought the breeze would be gentle and that the stone floor would release its chill after sunset. It did not. The night stabbed you in the ribs with ice fingers and whispered about your poor choices. You lay awake until dawn, questioning every decision you had ever made that led to that moment. Since then, the shirt alone has remained a myth, like mermaids or affordable cheese. You are told by nobles that too many layers prevent proper circulation, but nobles also say things like, "Let's hawk at sunrise," and a boiled egg should be peeled by a servant, so their opinions are suspect. You prefer the opinion of the woman who once slept in 3 tunics and a curtain and lived to tell the tale. She lost 2 buttons and half a toe, but she radiated wisdom. You think of her sometimes, like a patron saint of over-preparation. Sleeping in your clothes also means sleeping with everything you own. Your pouch, your knife, your one spoon, tucked into folds and waistbands, and wherever else you can fit them. You trust no one, not even Walter. Especially not Walter, who once made off with your glove and buried it in the ash pile. You found it 3 days later. It was warmer, yes, but it also smelled like betrayal. Your boots stay beside the bed, not under it, where mice live. Not by the fire, where someone else's boots will multiply and absorb yours by morning. Just beside you, where you can kick them awake if needed. One boot has a hole in the toe. You've patched it with wax and prayer. The other is fine, except for the sole, which is not attached. Together, they make the sound of someone trying not to cry when you walk. It's difficult to sleep deeply in all this armor. Your limbs resist relaxation. Your shoulders tense like they expect judgment. When you do drift off, your dreams involve being smothered by wool or chased by a shirt you forgot to dry. You do not dream of being naked. You wouldn't dare. Even in dreams, the cold finds you, but the layers protect you. Not from the cold entirely. No, the cold still seeps in like gossip, but from the worst of it. From the kind of chill that gets into your lungs and rearranges your soul. You know this, because once, on a dare, you slept in a linen undershirt and optimism. You almost died. You saw a light. It was the fireplace in the Lord's chamber. You weren't allowed in, but it was beautiful. Now you know better. You sleep in your clothes. You sweat. You itch. You freeze. You live. And that, in this castle, is the closest you get to comfort. No matter where you sleep, a breeze from the latrines finds its way in. It smells like revenge. You turn toward the wall. The wall is not better. The wall is damp and possibly judging you. Moisture clings to the stones like regret. You press your forehead to it anyway, because it's the only surface in the room not currently occupied by limbs or livestock. The wall accepts your suffering but offers nothing in return. It is the emotional equivalent of your aunt at feasts, cool, stony, and vaguely disappointed that you were born. The latrines are down the hall, through a door that creaks like it has secrets, and past the torch that never stays lit. You've never made the journey at night because you value your life and ankles, but their presence is constant. You've never seen them, but you know them intimately through smell. Their aroma is a regular participant in your dreams. It drifts in on invisible hooves, lingers in your hair, and settles in the folds of your bedding like a misdelivered curse. No matter how you position yourself, No matter how tightly you wrap your cloak or wedge your hat over your nose, the privy wind finds you. You are not alone in your suffering. Toad talks in his sleep and mumbles about the vapors. The tanner once tried to mask the stench with a dried clove tied to his upper lip, but it fell into his mouth and he almost choked. The woman near the fireplace has developed a technique where she tucks her face into her sleeve and breathes deeply, like she's smelling a pie that exists only in memory. The merchant's nephew simply complains, which is his approach to most things. None of it works. The smell always wins. Sometimes it's faint, like a memory that wasn't yours. Other times it arrives with force, as though catapulted directly from the bowels of the castle. You suspect the wind is sentient. It knows when you are most vulnerable. Drifting off, finally warm, dreaming of bread, and that is when it arrives. You are ripped from sleep by a scent so aggressive you nearly sit up. You clutch the blanket closer. The blanket does not protect you. It never has. The stone corridors that carry this aroma are long and indifferent. You've tried plugging the cracks with straw, wool, even your spare tunic, but the wind merely laughs and reroutes. You once asked the steward why the latrines were positioned upwind of the sleeping quarters, and he just said, "It's downhill," like that was an answer. You believe he knows the truth and simply doesn't want to speak it aloud. There are architectural decisions in this castle made by men who no longer walk among the living, and you suspect this is one of them. It feels like a prank that lasted centuries too long. You learn to recognize the phases. There is the early whiff, subtle, barely there, a gentle reminder that dignity is not part of your life anymore. Then the wave, thick and sour, with top notes of boiled leek and disappointment. And finally, the cling, where it settles on your pillow and refuses to leave. You sometimes punch your own bedding out of frustration. This achieves nothing but sore knuckles and louder snores from Toad. You contemplate moving your sleeping spot, perhaps to the hallway or outside, where the air is cruel but honest. But every space in the castle is claimed. There is no such thing as a private corner. Every inch belongs to someone, or something, or a family of weasels that no one wants to confront. You remain in your place. You breathe shallowly. You dream of soap, a concept you've heard of but never trusted. At one point, the wind carries something worse. You do not describe it aloud, because putting it into words might give it strength. You simply look at the others, and they look back at you, eyes wide and damp. The tanner whispers, "It's back." The woman groans. The merchant's nephew gags audibly. Even Walter, curled on a sack near the door, lifts his head and whines. No one moves. You just endure. There is a theory that the smell is worse in winter because the cold traps it. Another theory claims the smell is the castle's soul leaking out. A third insists it's the fault of the cook's stew and nothing else. You believe all three are partially correct. You believe many things in the night that you cannot explain in daylight. Sometimes you hold your breath and count to 20. Sometimes you try to breathe only through your mouth, but then you taste it, which is worse. You once tried coating your upper lip with goose fat, hoping it would create a barrier. It did not. It only made your mustache slippery. The woman called you Butterface for a week. You have not forgiven her. You imagine life as a noble, sleeping in a tower chamber with scented rushes and a fire that stays lit. You picture their clean linens, their lavender bundles, their chamber pots discreetly emptied by someone else. You hate them, but also, if they offered you a warm bench and a window that closes, you would weep openly and kiss their shoes. But this is your place. You lie on straw, wrapped in wool, breathing the ghosts of digestion past. You are not special. No one is special here. You are all equally fragrant, equally tired, equally haunted. The wind dies down for a moment. You wonder if it's over. You let your guard down. That's when it comes back. Stronger, colder, and with new mysteries, you curl into yourself. You question the choices that led to this moment. You accept them. The privy wind finds you, and it always will. You were promised firewood. You were not told it would be damp, smoked out, or already stolen by the steward's cousin. You stare at the fireplace like it personally betrayed you. It sits there, wide-mouthed and empty, a dark hole in the stone that might as well lead directly to the disappointment in your soul. Someone has arranged a handful of ash in a pile, as if the memory of warmth might warm you by osmosis. You poke it with a stick. The ash drifts into the air, lands in your eye, and you regret everything. Earlier, someone said there'd be more wood after Vespers. Someone always says there'll be more wood after Vespers. It's a phrase that means nothing and everything. Hope's last gasp before you put your second tunic on and accept your icy fate. You'd fetch the wood yourself if you knew where it was stored, but the steward has locked the shed and now pretends he's lost the key. He has not lost the key. You saw it on his belt, next to his lucky onion. He just doesn't want you to use the wood for non-essential fires, which is how he describes not dying of frostbite. The last time someone lit a fire in the hearth, it lasted for 7 minutes. It smoked like a curse and spat sparks at Toad's blanket. Toad did not notice. He thought it was a vision. The rest of you tried to huddle near the flames, but the chimney coughed and the fire died with a whimper, leaving only the smell of wet moss and defeat. Since then, the hearth has become decorative, a large, sad alcove where dreams go to nap. You consider gathering your own fuel. The castle has many things: splinters, barrels, a broom you once saw no one use. You tried burning straw once, in desperation. It lasted 4 seconds and produced more panic than heat. The matron said, if you did it again, she'd move you to the stables. The stables have a fire. You do not mention this. You merely nod and apologize for trying to survive. The steward's cousin, a man with 3 teeth and a suspiciously warm demeanor, definitely took some wood. You saw him smuggling a bundle under his cloak last night. When you asked him if it was firewood, he said, "No, these are my ceremonial sticks." You didn't have the energy to argue. You've accepted that he lives a richer internal life than you. The firewood, when it appears, is always damp. It arrives with the promise of warmth and the certainty of smoke. You try to dry it near the hearth, but there is no fire to dry it with. It becomes a circle of failure. You stack the wood. You whisper to it. You try to will it into combustion. It looks back at you, unburnt and smug. The woman near the corner swears she once had dry wood. She tells the story every few nights, like a bard recounting an epic tale. It begins with a trip to the woods, involves a hidden pile under a bush, and ends with, "And that's how I slept warm for 2 whole nights." You listen like a pilgrim at the feet of a saint. You nod reverently. You ask questions. You try to find the bush later, but all you find is a dead squirrel and a pair of boots missing their owner. Toad says you can burn dung. You say no. He says people do it in the East. You say people in the East probably have ventilation. He says he'll try it anyway. You sleep with your boots on that night, in case you have to run. The idea of a roaring fire becomes something of a group hallucination. You describe it to each other in slow, hushed tones, crackling logs, radiant heat, the way it would light up the stones, make shadows dance, dry your socks in under an hour. You sigh in unison. Someone fakes a cough just to hear the sound echo against the hearth. You try lighting a twig out of boredom. It smokes, then dies. You pretend you didn't care. You definitely did. The cloak you're wearing smells of smoke anyway, from a fire you saw 2 villages over. You stood near it for a minute and soaked in the memory. You've been chasing that feeling ever since. Sometimes the steward brings in a log, just one. He places it in the middle of the room like an offering to gods you stopped believing in. No one is allowed to burn it. It's for display. He calls it symbolic warmth. You call it fuel for a future riot. You consider naming it and giving it a tiny scarf, just to cope. You once wrote a poem about firewood. You do not share it. You are ashamed. It rhymed ember with remember, and you were crying when you finished it. The poem now lives in your sock, folded in half, occasionally reread in moments of extreme emotional collapse. It helps, a little. The hearth continues to mock you. You've stared into its emptiness so long, you've started imagining flames, flickering orange ghosts that almost seem real if you squint. You hold your hands out anyway, just in case. Nothing happens. Your fingers remain cold, stiff, resentful. At night, you pull your blanket tight and try not to think of the fire you were promised. The one that was supposed to be waiting. The one you never got. You tuck your hands beneath your arms. You press your knees together. You try to make heat from friction, hope, and sheer audacity. You nearly succeed. But then the wind from the latrine slithers in and steals what little you've built. You glance again at the fireplace, just once before sleep. It's still empty, still cold, still waiting for a fire that isn't coming. Your feet are the coldest part of you. You tuck them under a pigskin rug. The pigskin rug objects. It crinkles with ancient oils and stiff corners and smells like salted meat left too long in a saint's reliquary. You don't know what that means exactly, but your feet recoil. You curl your toes and try to pretend they're not part of your body. It doesn't work. They remain attached and outraged. The chill starts there, at the toes, like it's scouting the landscape. It creeps up the soles, snakes around your ankles, and by the time you feel it bite your calves, it's already plotting a siege against your knees. You lie still, afraid that movement might encourage it, as if the cold is a predator that hunts by tremor. You breathe shallowly. You whisper apologies to your feet. They whisper back, but it's mostly profanity. No matter how many layers you wear, no matter how tightly you bind your legs in wool in desperation, your feet remain a separate, ungoverned region of frost. You've given up on socks. Socks are fiction. They exist for nobles and babies. You once tried to make your own by wrapping cloth around your feet and tying it with string. You ended up with 2 cold sausages and a deep sense of shame. Walter laughed for 10 minutes and still calls you bundle toes. Sometimes you sleep with your feet between someone else's legs. It's not romantic. It's not even kind. It's survival. Toad, who snores through plague and prayer, has surprisingly warm thighs. You discovered this by accident during a particularly brutal night, when instinct led you there like a salmon returning to a stream. He grunted but didn't move. You remained for hours. In the morning, you didn't speak of it. You still don't. But you nod at each other with the solemnity of shared trauma. The pigskin rug has become your nemesis. It was once part of a pig named Bernard, according to the matron who says things you didn't ask to hear. Bernard was a noble beast. Now he is stiff, shiny, and oddly damp in the middle. The rug was supposed to be decorative, a gift from the steward's mother who believed in aesthetics but not ventilation. No one wanted to ruin it, so no one uses it, except you, who ruined it with your freezing toes and absolute lack of shame. At night, you sneak it under the blanket. The blanket does not appreciate it. A tension forms. The blanket tries to edge it out, while your feet play mediator, trapped in a turf war of warmth. The rug crackles every time you move. You pretend it's a pleasant fire. It's not. It's just Bernard, reminding you that comfort is an illusion. You consider other options. Sleeping with your feet near the hearth. The hearth is empty. Sleeping with your feet near the dog. The dog is gone. He left when the merchant's nephew tried to brush his teeth with beef tallow and got some in the dog's eye. You could sleep with your feet wrapped in cabbage leaves. You heard someone did that once and lived. But you've eaten all the cabbage. Now there's only regret. There's a story the older woman tells about a boy who wrapped his feet in bread dough and baked them near a dying fire. She says he married a princess. You suspect that's a lie, but you still think about the dough. Warm, pliable, risen with yeast and hope. You wonder if you could barter for some. You imagine showing up in the kitchen at midnight, eyes hollow, voice trembling. It's not for eating, it's for the toes. You would be beaten with a ladle. It might be worth it. You try friction, rubbing your feet together like sad, hairless crickets. You build no heat, you build frustration. The motion disturbs the tanner, who moans something about goats and kicks you in the shin. You yelp, you clutch your leg, you envy the goats. You have never seen a cold goat. You try elevation, propping your feet on a sack of barley that someone swore was dry. It's not. It seeps through your cloak and chills you from a new angle. You remove your feet, apologize to the barley, and accept your fate. The others have no better solutions. The merchant's nephew claims he no longer feels his feet at all, which he says is a sign of strength but might actually be nerve damage. The woman by the wall has wrapped her feet in pages from a ruined prayer book. She says the words keep her warm. You think the warmth is mostly ink and blind faith. Walter wears shoes to bed. No one questions him. He has the look of a man who has seen too much. One night, in a moment of raw genius, you attempt to sleep sitting up. You wrap your arms around your knees, bury your head, and pretend to be a bundle of laundry no one wants to touch. It works for 12 minutes. Then your back locks, your neck spasms, and your feet rebel. They have grown colder in the darkness, as if they've made a deal with winter. You lie down again. You whimper once. Quietly, you think of noble beds, thick feather mattresses, velvet canopies, slippers by the fire. You think of lords whose feet have never known stone or straw. You think of footmen whose job is to warm boots with heated stones. You think of firewood that isn't symbolic. You think of betrayal. Eventually, you stop trying. You let the cold claim your feet. You name your toes after saints and whisper farewells. You wrap your arms tighter and breathe in through your nose, which now matches your feet in color and utility. You drift towards sleep, twitching occasionally as one foot kicks in protest. You ignore it. You've both done what you could. In the morning, your feet will still be cold. They always are, but they're still there. Probably, you've been moved to the servants' quarters. It's not really a room. It's more like a decision someone regretted halfway through making. A hallway that gives up halfway along, too narrow to walk through with pride, too wide to feel secure. Someone, probably a steward with a conscience and a drinking problem, declared it adequate and left it at that. You are not so much living in it as you are crouching within it, trying not to become part of the architecture. There's a beam overhead that droops in sympathy with your posture. You don't know if it's structural or just bored. The draft lives here. Not visits, not drifts through, not knocks politely and leaves. It resides here. It has unpacked its belongings, set up a cot, and now roams freely from floor to ceiling like an invisible cat with boundary issues. It enters your sleeves without warning, snakes into your collar, curls up behind your knees like a jealous ghost. You try blocking the gaps with your sackcloth pillow, which achieves nothing except making the pillow cold too. The stones under your mat are clammy and sincere. You could bake regret on them. There are other people here, technically, servants, like you, or near enough. They shuffle in and out at ungodly hours, their arms full of turnips or laundry or whatever fresh cruelty the kitchen requires at sunrise. You don't talk much. It's hard to bond in purgatory. The most interaction you've had was when a scullery boy sat on your foot for 30 minutes and never noticed. He was crying, which you assumed meant either heartbreak or potatoes. You said nothing. You let him have the foot. It was cold anyway. The light in this corridor comes from a single torch that someone forgot to replace 3 days ago. It flickers like it's trying to escape the wall. At night, it dies entirely, and you navigate by memory and the occasional shriek when you kick someone's bucket of eels. There are always eels. You've never seen anyone eat them. You suspect the eels are simply here now, like the draft, like you. No one chose this. It just happened. You whisper goodnight to a rat out of courtesy. You've named it Henri. Henri is the only consistent presence here besides the mold. He's large, brazen, and has a limp that makes him look philosophical. Sometimes he brings friends. You nod at them. They nod back, probably. You don't make eye contact. This is their home, really. You're just squatting in it. Your blanket no longer reaches your shoulders if you want it to cover your feet. You play a game every night called Who Do I Hate More, My Neck or My Toes? The answer changes depending on the wind direction. You've tried lying diagonally. You've tried curling like a question mark. You've tried stuffing your head into your tunic like a terrified turtle. The result is always the same. You are uncomfortable, and the blanket smells faintly of brine and dishonesty. The wall beside you is leaking again. It doesn't leak water. It leaks feeling. Dampness with intent. The kind that seeps into your dreams and whispers things like, "You'll never be warm again," and "Your cousin was right about you." You press your back against it anyway, because it's either that or sleep next to the bucket. You tried the bucket once. You woke up damp and questioning your value as a person. You haven't made that mistake again. Someone snores 3 doors down, though you're not sure where the doors are. There are curtains in places where doors should be, and some of them lead to actual rooms. You assume the people behind them have firewood, or at least less wind. You fantasize about switching places with them, just for one night. You'd leave a polite note. You'd make your cot smell neutral before leaving. But you know that's not how the castle works. You're in the hallway now. You're hallway people. The fleas here are different. They seem confused, as if they've migrated from warmer hosts and now regret everything. They leap without enthusiasm. You watch one jump onto your sleeve, pause, and leap right back off again. You feel a sense of kinship. You, too, have made bad choices. In the early hours of the morning, when the world is silent except for distant coughing and the occasional clatter of a chamber pot lid, you imagine what it might be like to sleep in a bed with corners. A bed not shaped like guilt and fatigue. A bed with a mattress made of something other than oat husks and betrayal. You imagine a room with a door, a latch, maybe even a hook for your cloak. You allow yourself to dream briefly of warmth. Then someone slams a cupboard and you jolt back into your reality. A hallway with a heartbeat and too many elbows. The air smells of onions, feet, and crushed ambition. The smell changes hourly. You've learned to identify people by it. The cook's assistant smells like boiled chicken and scorn. The matron smells like regret and rosewater. You, apparently, smell like dust with opinions. That's what the steward's cousin said anyway. You pretend not to care. You care a lot. You almost wept into your porridge when he said it. You wonder how long you'll be here. They said just for a bit when they moved you. A temporary arrangement, they said, as if anything in the castle isn't temporary unless it's cold. You haven't seen the person you replaced. You suspect they either moved up in the world or were absorbed into the floorboards. Either way, they are free. You envy them. You lie back against your mat. You exhale. The air curls back into your nose, heavy with mildew and possibility. Henri scuttles past your ear. You do not flinch. This is your hallway now. You whisper goodnight to the torch stub. It does not answer. You sleep anyway. In desperation, you stuff straw into your sleeves, boots, and dignity. It itches like guilt, the kind of guilt your grandmother used to assign with a glance and a sigh. You scratch without making it obvious, which means you move like you're haunted but trying to play it cool. The straw helps, but only in the way confession helps the soul. Marginally, and with lingering discomfort. Your arms are now misshapen, your legs crinkle with every step, and your chest rustles when you breathe too deep. You tell people it's the sound of resilience. No one believes you, especially not Henri, who stares at you like you've become the world's least convincing scarecrow. You got the idea from a carpenter who hasn't spoken in 3 years but occasionally gestures with conviction. He shoved hay down his tunic one night, nodded at you like a prophet in a fever, and promptly fell asleep against a barrel of turnips. You thought, that man knows warmth, and followed suit. You now live in a personal ecosystem of agricultural stuffing. somewhere between scarecrow and sad mattress. You have lost feeling in your elbows, but your armpits are aggressively warm. The stuffing process itself is delicate. Too little, and you're just itchy and cold. Too much, and you become immobile, like a wrapped joint of meat left near a fire that no one intends to cook. There's a point where insulation turns into entrapment. You discover this halfway through trying to reach for your water cup and realizing your arm no longer bends. You drink sideways now. No one comments. It's better that way. You also learn that not all straw is equal. Some is soft and pliable, like a forgiving memory. Some is stiff and vindictive, like a tutor who never forgot you spilled ink on his robe. You have been unlucky. Your straw appears to have come from the pile labeled leftovers and spite. It pokes through your tunic like it's trying to escape you. It doesn't succeed. You are now more straw than human. A walking commentary on desperation. You bend over and creak. Someone in the corridor says you sound like a cursed pantry. You have stuffed it in your boots, and now your toes live in uneven pockets of crunch. One foot is marginally comfortable. The other feels like it's resting on a rolled-up apology. You try to even them out by shifting bits around, but straw doesn't redistribute. It clumps, it resists, and it judges. You accept it. You were never destined for balance. You walk with a limp now, but you call it an affectation of nobility. No one is fooled, especially not the steward's cousin, who loudly asks if you've got rats in your socks. You don't respond. You're focused on not igniting, because the real danger is fire. You are highly flammable now, the kind of flammable that makes people nervous when you sit too close to a candle. You caught a spark last night from someone's pipe, and the resulting panic could have qualified as entertainment if it hadn't involved your left sleeve and 3 gallons of slop water. You smell faintly of ash and onions. The tanner says it's an improvement. Sleeping is complicated. You don't lie down so much as collapse carefully. If you turn too quickly, the straw shifts and creates pressure points. Last night you woke up with one knee 6 inches higher than the other, like your own leg was trying to stage an escape. Your back is developing strange new angles. You think one of your shoulders is now triangular. You make peace with this. At least it's warm. You scratch when you think no one's watching. You scratch with intent. The kind of scratching that implies deals made and regrets earned. Your skin itches with the passion of 1,000 regrets. You try to meditate past it. You last 6 seconds. You have become a symphony of rustling discomfort. Every time you shift, the room reacts. Someone mutters, someone groans, someone hurls a slipper at you. You do not take offense. You are noise now. You are rustle incarnate. The straw makes you look bulky, not in a heroic way, but in a who let that stuffed goose wear a tunic way. Children stare. The matron calls you haystack. You laugh politely, but inside, you are considering vengeance, or at least a mild prank involving her laundry and 2 aggressive squirrels. But revenge requires energy. You barely have enough strength to maintain your straw containment. One wrong movement, and it bursts out of your collar like a botanical confession. You tried to sit next to the fire again. You forgot the rules. The steward nearly tackled you. He shouted something about flammable vagrants and not again. You weren't listening. You were staring at the logs. Real, dry, honorable logs. You whisper to them sometimes. They don't answer, but you think they feel your yearning. The straw does not. It mocks you with every scratch. One night, you dream you are a pillow. People rest on you. You are soft, needed, warm. You wake up and realize you are none of those things. You are itchy, loud, and vaguely uneven. Henri is nesting near your ankle. You don't blame him. You are very nestable now. You offer no resistance. You just sigh and sink back into your personal compost heap. Eventually, you begin to forget what it felt like to be smooth, to be unpadded, uncrackling, unjudged by rodents. You are straw now. You accept this truth. You walk with purpose, even if every step sounds like autumn in pain. You speak less, because you've realized words don't help you scratch your own back. You move slowly, deliberately, because speed is the enemy of insulation. You tell people it's the sound of resilience. You say it with your chin up, even if the straw pokes it. You say it because no one else will. Because in a castle built on drafts and damp, sometimes you have to choose between your dignity and not freezing to death. You chose straw, and you stand by it. Mostly, there is no true silence. Not in the castle, not in the hallway, not in your bones. You once believed in silence the way a child believes in dragons. Fervently, foolishly, and with full-body commitment. Now you know better. Silence is a bedtime story for the wealthy, the kind of thing they tell themselves after polishing their goblets and extinguishing candles with silver lids. Down here, in the bowels of the castle where the air hangs heavy with mildew and missed opportunities, there is only the long, wheezing opera of people trying not to die inconveniently. Someone is always awake. They might not be moving, or talking, or even thinking with clarity, but they are awake in the same way a tree is still alive after being struck by lightning. There's the cook's apprentice who sleepwalks but insists he's praying. There's the old scullion who mutters confessions to long-dead chickens. There's the boy in the corner who has hiccuped for 3 days straight, and no one knows why. You've considered diagnosing him with a demon, but frankly, it seems rude to interrupt. Everyone has their rituals. His just happens to involve mild rhythmic gasps. The coughing is relentless. It travels like gossip. One person coughs, then another joins in, and soon the hallway sounds like a symphony of lungs staging a mutiny. You don't know who started it. You don't know who will end it. You just lie there, counting the seconds between barks, wondering if there is a prize for most persistent phlegm. You hope there is. You hope the winner gets a blanket that doesn't smell like goat panic. Then there are the prayers. Short, sharp, whispered into the air like bribes. Some are muttered through gritted teeth, others sung with the sincerity of a child trying not to get in trouble. One man, possibly a monk, recites psalms with the cadence of someone being chased. He does this every night, in Latin, though you're fairly sure half the words are made up. Last night he accidentally summoned the name of a local pig. The pig showed up. The dog howls from somewhere outside. You've never seen it. No one has. It is the voice of the void, the echo of an ancient canine who disapproves of your life choices. Its howl is long, mournful, and oddly judgmental. It rises just when you think the world might be still, cuts through your flimsy straw armor, and sets your teeth vibrating with ancestral shame. You howl back once, in jest. The dog goes silent. You haven't tried again. Someone farts. They do not apologize. They do not shift. They simply exist in the audacity of what they've done. You hear the fart, then a pause, then a quiet amen. You assume it was the monk, or possibly the pig again. You stop asking questions. You lie on your back, blanket clutched to your chest, body curled into a shape that suggests remorse. Every creak of the walls feels like a prophecy. Every shuffle of a fellow servant reminds you that you are not alone, and not in the comforting way. You are surrounded by the restless, the cursed, the mildly gassy. You envy the dead. At least they get silence. You shift your leg. It crunches, not from injury, but from straw redistribution. Your thigh now resembles a poorly baked loaf. You try not to breathe too loudly. Someone once told you your breath sounds like a disappointed bellows. You think about that often. Sleep teases you. It hangs just out of reach, like a plum dangling from a tree branch you'll never reach without a ladder or divine intervention. You drift, briefly, only to be yanked back by a sneeze, or a thump, or the sound of someone whispering secrets to their own toes. You try counting sheep, but they all run away by number 4, and one of them spits at you. You try praying, but the only words you remember are about vengeance and wine. The fire in the next room crackles, but it's not for you. It's for someone with a name embroidered on a tunic. You imagine their sleep is deep and unbothered. You imagine their bed is not shared with 6 half-conscious strangers and 1 extremely bold rat. You wonder what it would be like to wake up rested. You briefly believe in reincarnation. The girl next to you talks in her sleep. She debates the price of carrots. Last night she proposed to one. You hope it said yes. She seems lonely. You've learned to identify people by their night noises. There's the old washerwoman who hums sea shanties whenever she dreams. There's the stable boy who kicks like he's still chasing geese. There's someone who occasionally weeps and denies it with such speed that you suspect it might be you. You've stopped trying to unravel the soundscape. It's too layered, too surreal, like sharing a bed with 5 plays and a windstorm. At some point, you stop chasing silence. You accept the noises the way you accept the draft, the itching, the loss of personal space. They are part of the experience, part of what keeps you tethered to this strange, smelly world. You begin to find a rhythm in it, the way the moans follow the clatter, the way the snore blends into the whistle of the wind. It's not peace, but it is something. The bell tower strikes a note that doesn't exist on any scale, a single, dissonant clang that lets you know it is somehow still not morning. You sigh. The sound is swallowed instantly by a snore and a hiccup duet. You pull the blanket tighter, though it has no interest in helping you. You think again about sleep, about the myth of it. Maybe it's not real. Maybe no one has ever actually slept, and they've all just been pretending out of politeness. Maybe the entire concept was invented by someone who didn't have rats and monks and echoing dogs. Maybe you've never been asleep at all. You close your eyes. Someone coughs. You smile. Someone is always awake. Maybe tonight, it's you. You glimpse the Lord's bedchamber for only a moment, but it is enough to ruin you. The door swings open as the steward rushes past, holding something brass and steaming, and for that brief, traitorous second, your eyes drink in the scene like a man crawling through a desert finds a tavern. There are curtains, actual curtains, not sacks sewn together or scraps from failed tapestries, but real cloth, thick and pleated, embroidered with lions who seem to look down at you with tailored disdain. There are furs, heaped casually like a hunter's apology. Mink, fox, something large and extinct-looking draped over a chair with more curves than the baker's daughter. The bed is enormous and looks like it might contain actual softness. Feathers, even. Feathers that have never known the indignity of damp or straw or sleepwalkers with night terrors. You feel your soul wrinkle with longing. The air smells of pine, beeswax, and maybe cinnamon, if cinnamon were allowed to marry money. You catch yourself inhaling too deeply and nearly choke on your own jealousy. There is no mildew here, no hint of chamber pot or stale onion. There are no rats whispering blasphemies under the floorboards. The only sound is the faint huff of firewood doing its holy work. It is so warm that you see a slipper, an actual slipper, made of leather and lined with lamb's wool, casually tossed aside, as if even the Lord's feet can't be bothered to be cold. The steward glares at you. You are not meant to see this. You are meant to live in the corridor, eating lentils and pretending the wall doesn't leak. You are meant to sleep in clothes that double as outerwear and funeral attire. You are meant to believe that suffering builds character. But now you have seen a mattress that sighs when touched. You have seen a fire that burns without smoking you out like a condemned witch. You have seen a life where bedtime does not involve bargaining with vermin and stuffing straw into your armpits. You close the door. It is heavier than your conscience. You mutter something unholy. A prayer, maybe. A curse, probably. Something between a plea and an exhalation of betrayal. Your feet carry you away, but your heart lingers, pinned to the fur throw like a martyr in itchy socks. The rest of the night is harder because of what you've seen. The hallway feels colder, the blankets scratchier, your own existence more like a dare from the universe. You stare at the stone ceiling, which drips occasionally, just to remind you it's there. You think about the bed warmer, an object you once thought was fictional, like honesty or clean fingernails. A little pan of coals, slipped between sheets by someone who doesn't have to sleep in their own drafts. A vessel of heat designed solely to keep one man's toes from experiencing what your entire body has become. A tribute to frost. You picture the Lord, sprawled across his feather bed like a satisfied cat, furs kicked off in a display of excess. You imagine he sleeps deeply, soundlessly, perhaps with one hand resting on a velvet pillow and the other on a goblet, just in case he wakes up thirsty for wine and dominance. You wonder if he dreams, and if so, whether his dreams are also warmer than yours. You hope he at least snores like a dying bagpipe. You try to summon noble thoughts. You tell yourself he is burdened with leadership, that he must make decisions and sign things and occasionally ride a horse in a parade. You try to feel compassion. It fails. All you can think about is how his chamber smells like forest and bees, while your section of the hallway smells like cabbage, betrayal, and foot history. In the morning, your back aches. Not in the heroic way, but in the way that suggests your spine is filing a formal complaint. You sit up and bits of straw fall from your clothes like confetti thrown by an underpaid jester. Henri greets you with his usual three-tooth grin and a comment about how his sock froze to the wall again. You nod and smile, but inside, you are changed. You have seen warmth. You have smelled privilege. You have glimpsed a world where people don't have to rewarm their own breath. The other servants talk about chores, about bread, about the latest goose incident. You say nothing. You are too busy remembering the feel of pine-scented air. You try to commit it to memory, but it already feels like a dream someone else had, one you overheard while pretending to sleep. Later that day, you're assigned to sweep near the Lord's quarters. You see the chamber door again. It mocks you with its polished hinges. Someone inside laughs, a low, effortless sound that has never known a cracked lip or a cold pillow. You sweep harder than necessary. Dust rises in protest. You contemplate setting the broom down and walking into the woods, becoming a legend, or a hermit, or both. You think about sleeping in a hollow tree and realize it might still be warmer than the servants' quarters. You know you'll never forget what you saw. The curtains, the fire, the bed that looked like a lie told by angels. It will haunt you. It will whisper to you in the night, between the snores and farts and ghost dog howls. You will wonder, always, what it would be like to sleep like that. To be wrapped in fur and dignity, instead of straw and the quiet hope you don't get frostbite on your nose. You saw it once. That's enough. Enough to ruin you. Enough to make the cold feel personal. Your dreams are cold. Not metaphorically cold, not chilly, like a snub from a noblewoman at Lent, but physically, bone-deep cold. The kind of cold that breaks into your unconscious like a thief and rearranges all your thoughts until your brain can only conjure bleak, frostbitten metaphors. You drift off to sleep thinking about soup and wake up having dreamed of licking icicles off the back of a mule. There's no warmth, not even in your fantasies. You try to imagine the sun, and your mind gives you a pale disk wrapped in clouds that apologizes for existing. You used to have dreams of spring. Now you dream of not dying before morning. In tonight's installment of Subconscious Misery, you are riding a sleigh made of stale bread crusts across a moat that freezes beneath you as you move. The sleigh creaks, because even your dreams have budget constraints. You are wearing 3 mismatched socks on your hands and a hat shaped like despair. A goose flies overhead and honks something judgmental. You cannot respond because your mouth is full of snow and regret. The wind sings lullabies in a dialect you don't understand but still feel insulted by. You try to steer the crust sleigh, but it dissolves beneath you, and you plummet into a moat of something slushy and suspiciously onion-scented. You fight your way out, climb up the ice bank, and are immediately challenged to single combat by a snowman made entirely of debt. It has buttons made from old tax scrolls and eyes like coin purses that have never been full. It wields a sword made of unpaid tithes and the ghost of a cancelled dowry. You duel with a broom. Your blows thud into his frosty torso with all the weight of a disappointed uncle. You lose, obviously. He knocks your broom away and tells you that fiscal responsibility is for people with shoes. Then he melts, because even debt in dreams has the decency to disappear eventually. You wake up with your face stuck to your pillow. This is not a poetic expression. You have drooled in your sleep, and the drool has frozen solid, gluing you to the fabric with the adhesive force of winter's cruelty. You tug. It does not budge. You try again, this time with a twist, and feel the slow, tearing peel of your own skin, separating from the linen like cheese from a cold plate. It is not the most painful thing that's ever happened to you, but it ranks. The blanket has migrated in the night. It now covers your left knee and the foot of the man next to you, whose name might be Martin or possibly Bucket. You reclaim it with the stealth of a burglar and the desperation of a freezing poet. The blanket resists. It has grown fond of Bucket's foot. You assert dominance by muttering threats, which is enough to scare neither the blanket nor the foot, but makes you feel better. Your breath comes out in little puffs that hover in the air before giving up. You exhale dramatically just to see if the mist forms any interesting shapes. It does not. It forms something vaguely like a sad duck, and then vanishes. You're not sure what time it is, but your toes have turned into metaphor, and your fingers have all decided to go their separate ways emotionally. You pull your arms in tighter and tuck your hands into your armpits. It doesn't help, but it does give you something to do. Around you, the world remains asleep, or something adjacent to sleep. There are groans, snores, a soft whimper that may come from the rat in the corner, or the man dreaming about being chased by poultry. Someone murmurs something about pickled beets. You close your eyes again, not because you expect rest, but because you hope to escape back into the nonsense blizzard of your subconscious, where at least the snowmen have names and the wind doesn't smell like feet. This time, your dream starts in a cathedral made of icicles. The choir is singing, but they're off-key, and all of them are goats. You're dressed as a bishop, but everyone keeps calling you Margaret. You nod politely and continue with the sermon. The altar melts mid-blessing and reveals a boiling pot of stew. You reach for it and wake up instead, hand outstretched toward nothing but cold air and the vague sense that you used to believe in summer. Your joints snap when you move. It sounds like applause, which is the closest thing to encouragement you'll get before breakfast. You sit up slowly, partly because you don't want to wake anyone, and partly because your spine has formed a union and requires negotiation. The air tastes like someone's breath from yesterday. You inhale it anyway. Oxygen is oxygen. Your shirt has frozen in 3 places. You decide to pretend it's a design choice. Avant-garde, brutalist, the fashion of people who live dangerously and without adequate heating. You shake out the straw that clings to your sleeves and wonder if it has learned to love you yet. It has not. It never will. Straw has no loyalty. You crawl toward the hearth, which contains no fire but does offer a faint sense of where warmth might have once been. You bask in its memory like a child pressed against the door of a bakery. You imagine flames. You imagine crackling wood, glowing embers, and the luxurious pop of sap. You sneeze instead. The sound echoes. Someone stirs and farts in response. You accept this as a greeting. The dream still lingers. You can feel the snowman's eyes watching you from the folds of your memory. You think about what he said. You wonder if you'll ever not owe someone something. You wonder if warmth is always going to be conditional. You sigh, and it comes out in a cloud that looks like surrender. You wrap yourself in the blanket, such as it is. It smells like goat and dust and old soup, but it's better than frostbite. You lie back down and close your eyes, just for a moment. Maybe you'll dream again. Maybe you'll win this time. Maybe the snowman will have a coupon. Maybe the sleigh will hold together. Maybe this time, you won't drool ice. You sneak into the kitchen because nothing else has worked, and desperation makes poets and criminals of us all. It is late, or early, depending on whether you're an optimist, a baker, or a ghost. The hallway has gone quiet, except for the wind crawling through cracks and making statements about your life choices. You hold your breath as you ease the door open, praying it doesn't creak like it usually does, like it's auditioning to be a haunted violin. It doesn't. A miracle. The kitchen lets you in, like it half remembers you from a past life when you weren't a human icicle. It's dark, but not unfriendly. The dying embers in the hearth glow faintly, like an old man reminiscing about a party that ended 3 decades ago. There is warmth, not a lot, but just enough to make your nostrils twitch, and your heart do that thing where it briefly considers hope. You cross the stone floor, avoiding the sticky spot where something exploded last feast day and was never spoken of again. The air smells like soot and flour and ambition that gave up. The coals are still warm. You kneel by them like a pilgrim. You press your hands close, not too close. You remember what happened to Toad and his enthusiastic elbow. The heat seeps in slowly, like gossip, creeping into your fingers and radiating up your arms. You nearly weep. It is the first time in weeks your bones haven't felt like hollow icicles pretending to be human. You curl closer. You stretch out, careful not to smother the last coals into smoke and betrayal. The floor is hard, yes, but hard is familiar. Hard is survivable. Cold is not. Then you see the cat. It is sprawled in the corner like royalty gone rogue, half in shadow, half in smugness. It's orange, or possibly gray, depending on how much ash it has rolled in. It lifts its head and looks at you like you've interrupted a sonnet. You freeze, out of habit and respect. The cat considers you. Its eyes gleam with the kind of intelligence you don't trust. You nod. The cat blinks slowly. A contract is formed. You inch toward it, palms up, like a supplicant or a man who has tried everything else and finally turned to felines. The cat watches you with the apathy of a saint who's heard this prayer before. You lie down next to it. Not touching, not assuming. You understand the rules. You are allowed to exist near the cat. That is the extent of your privilege. To your astonishment, the cat shifts slightly and presses one warm flank against your side. You nearly collapse from the joy of it. It's warm, radiantly warm, like it swallowed a small sun and is now moonlighting as a miracle. You adjust the scrap of blanket you brought, like a pathetic flag of surrender, and wrap it around yourself and this glorious beast who may or may not be divine. You fall asleep like a man entering a holy trance. When you wake, the kitchen is brighter. The coals are dead, but not you. The cat is gone, leaving only a faint impression in the ash and a few hairs on your tunic that you will never remove out of reverence. You feel okay, not good. Let's not get ambitious, but less like a dying leaf and more like a damp one. Your limbs move without complaint. Your nose is still attached. You may even have drooled a little, which means your face wasn't frozen shut. Progress. Then you realize you are covered in ash. Your left sleeve is streaked with soot. Your face feels grainy, like someone powdered you with chimney sadness. There is a black smudge on your cheek and something in your hair that might be flour, or possibly something less charitable. You brush yourself off, which only spreads the evidence of your survival strategy across a broader surface area. You now resemble a disgraced chimney sweep or a particularly tired ghost. You look around, but no one has seen you, or if they have mercifully decided to ignore it. You add this to your list of reasons to be grateful, right underneath cat warmth, and above, no new frostbite. You move quietly because you don't want to wake anyone or alert the head cook, who does not believe in breakfast before sunrise and considers unauthorized warmth a personal affront. You slip out the door, back into the hall where the cold greets you like a spurned lover. It tries to crawl back into your bones, but you're armed now. You have traces of heat clinging to your skin. You have ash and memory and a sense of feline approval. Someone passes you in the corridor and gives you a look. It says, You smell like burnt bread, and your hair is smoking. But they say nothing. You nod politely and continue walking. You know the truth. You found the warmest place in the castle last night, and it purred. Later, someone mentions that the kitchen cat doesn't like people, that it once bit the steward for reaching too close, that it's been known to vanish for days and return with smugness and blood on its whiskers. You say nothing. You smile a little. You understand now that the cat chose you, that, for one night, you were deemed worthy of its heat. You will not speak of it out loud. You will carry it with you like a secret hearth. That evening, when the wind returns with its usual threats and your sleeping space feels like a dare from the gods, you think about sneaking back to the kitchen. You picture the coals, the floor, the cat, but you hesitate. Miracles are not to be asked for twice. You lie down where you're supposed to. You pull your blanket over your head and let the ash still in your clothes be your shield. You sleep. Not well, but not cold. You don't know the healer's name. Nobody really does. They just call her Maud, or Old Maud, or sometimes, don't let her touch you with that. She appears in the corridor sometime after the third frostbite incident, and just before the cook declared the lentils haunted. She has a smell like boiled nettles and poorly buried secrets, and eyes that have seen too much and decided to laugh at it anyway. She wears 12 layers, none of which match, and talks in a way that makes you feel like she's already told you off before you even speak. You're not sure how she became involved in your sleep issues, but you assume it's because you sighed too loudly, and now your fate is sealed. Maud listens to your complaints, or at least waits until you stop talking, then nods slowly, as if diagnosing a spiritual deficiency. What you need, she says, is a stone. You've heard worse. But she doesn't stop there. A hot stone, she continues, heated in urine, holds warmth longer, good thick heat. There's a pause, in which your soul briefly tries to eject itself. You nod, because that's what you do now. You nod at madness. You accept the unacceptable. You do not ask questions, because answers have consequences. You do not ask whose urine, not because you're above the thought, but because you know there are only wrong answers. Yours? Worse. Someone else's? Worse than that. Communal urine? You'd rather freeze into a statue and let future historians guess what kind of ceremonial pose you were doing. You thank her, as if she's given you a blessed relic instead of a bodily fluid-based suggestion. She hands you a cloth-wrapped lump that sloshes in a way no stone should ever slosh. You nod again. Your nodding has become a survival mechanism. She walks away before you can think of anything else to do, and somehow that makes it worse. You're left standing there, holding a bag of future regret and contemplating whether this is what rock bottom looks like. You laugh silently. Rock bottom, because it's a stone. It's late when you finally work up the nerve to use it. Everyone else is asleep or pretending to be. The hallway is full of snoring and low-level despair. You unwrap the stone carefully, like it's a curse or a gift from a god, with a twisted sense of humor. It's still warm, disturbingly so. The cloth is damp, but you pretend it's from steam. You place the stone at your feet, shudder once, and then curl your body around it like a question mark. It works. This is the worst part. The warmth is immediate and soothing, not sharp like fire, but slow and encompassing, like being judged by a grandmother who still loves you. Your feet, which have known nothing but betrayal and cold rebellion, begin to thaw. The rest of your body sighs in confused relief. You sleep. You dream of a bath, a real bath, with soap and privacy and no one shouting about geese. You are clean and warm and safe, and no one is trying to explain how frostbite builds character. You are happy. You wake with your cheek against the floor and the stone tucked lovingly beside your leg. You feel rested, which feels wrong. You sit up slowly, as if expecting the warmth to evaporate and leave behind a trail of regret. But it lingers, faint but real. You stretch, and your limbs don't crack like dried parchment. You almost smile. Then you remember. You stare at the stone. You remember what it is. You remember what made it warm. You hate yourself a little. You hate Maud a lot. You hate the world for making you live in a time where rocks marinated in human byproduct are the height of comfort technology. You wrap the stone again, more carefully now, like it might speak your secrets aloud. You place it by the hearth where it can dry, or possibly purify itself through shame. No one else must know. You will carry this truth like a shadow. The day is cold, of course. The sun shines with the warmth of a disapproving stepfather. People move stiffly through chores and conversations. Toad tries to talk to you about his new theory involving onions and toe circulation, but you nod vaguely and drift off, thinking about the stone, about how you swore you'd never use it again, about how you probably will, tonight and the night after, until spring arrives, or death, whichever is more punctual. Later, Maud catches your eye across the yard. She gives you a knowing look, not smug, just ancient, like she's seen generations of shivering fools try everything else and eventually crawl to her with chapped lips and frozen knees. She nods. You do not nod back. You are not ready for that level of honesty. You spend the rest of the day avoiding questions. When someone asks how you look so well rested, you pretend you've taken up meditation. When they ask why your feet aren't purple anymore, you claim divine intervention and a good pair of socks. When Henri jokingly accuses you of cuddling a pig in the night, you laugh harder than necessary and pretend to be offended. Night comes again. The hallway is colder than before, as if the walls heard about your secret and are testing your loyalty. You hold out for an hour, 2. You hug your knees and whisper to yourself about self-respect. Then you retrieve the stone. You heat it in silence. You wrap it in cloth. You do not think too hard about what you're doing. You simply place it by your feet and let the heat work its wicked, beautiful magic. You hate that it works, but it does. You climb the ladder like a sinner climbing toward absolution. Each rung creaks with judgment, each step a reminder that you have exhausted all other options and most of your dignity. The hayloft smells like nostalgia, if nostalgia had bad hygiene. It is warm, though, warmer than the stone floor. Warmer than the rat-infested corridor, warmer than that brief and terrible week in the laundry cellar where a soap maker tried to convert you to her religion of suds and passive-aggressive whistling. Here, at least, there is softness. Technically, the hay pokes you through your layers like a collection of disapproving ants, but compared to the slap of winter wind in your face every morning, it is a tender betrayal. You nestle into it the way a hedgehog might, desperate and prickly. You dig your limbs down deep, forming a kind of human crater. It's not comfortable, but it's not entirely miserable, which in your current life qualifies as a rousing success. There are beetles. You know this immediately because one of them introduces itself by walking across your eyebrow like it owns the place. You flinch, but only a little. Resistance is futile. The beetles were here before you and will remain long after. You reach a silent truce. They can have your shins if they leave your face alone. One crawls into your hood and settles there with the confidence of a nobleman in a rented villa. You do not argue. The goat bleats below, sharp and judgmental. She is old and possibly a witch. You have seen her stare into the fire like she was remembering a past life. She sneezes with surprising force, and you sneeze in reply because hay, it turns out, is a liar. It promises comfort and delivers allergens. You are leaking from every hole in your head. Still, the goat sneezes again, and something about the exchange feels civil. You have achieved understanding. You are kin now. The wind howls against the wooden slats of the barn, but the hay muffles it, turns it into a distant complaint. It's not silent, but it is less cruel. The darkness folds over you like a slightly itchy blanket made by someone who cares just enough to make it functional, but not enough to wash it first. You accept this. You have lowered your standards so efficiently, You might write a book about it. You try to sleep. It comes in fits. Between the occasional goat noise and the rustling of beetle meetings happening beneath you, you catch fragments of dreams. You are walking through a meadow barefoot, sun on your face, grass between your toes, no fleas, no damp, no Latin snoring. A perfect fantasy. In this dream, bread is soft and warm and always available. There are no lepers, no stew. You do not smell faintly of despair and wood smoke. It is, quite frankly, suspicious. You wake up to your foot being nibbled, gently, like a love letter written by a creature with poor boundaries. The goat has found you. She is licking your boot like it contains hidden truths. You murmur something indecipherable and pull your foot back, tucking it further into the hay, deeper into your nest of compromise. She grunts and walks off, unimpressed. Your body itches, not from the bugs, though they are doing their best, but from hay itself, which has decided that burrowing into your tunic is the hill it will die on. You have straw in your sleeves, in your socks, in places no straw should ever be. You feel like a poorly disguised scarecrow, hiding from tax collectors and personal growth. You contemplate standing up, shaking it all off, returning to your corner of cold stone and familiar misery. Then the wind whistles through a knot in the wall and you change your mind. There's a strange kind of peace in this barn. It's old and slanted and smells like every animal that has ever passed through it, but it feels more honest than the castle walls. The hay is unpretentious. It's not trying to be anything it's not. It's warm because it's full of life, or at least things that wriggle. The goat is unpredictable, but at least she doesn't talk in her sleep. You've started to think maybe you were meant to be here. Maybe all those stone walls and noble hallways were distractions from your true calling as a sentient pile of straw. A beetle crawls out of your collar and disappears into the night. You nod at it, respectfully. You've made it through another night without freezing, without despairing too loudly, without declaring emotional bankruptcy. You didn't wake up with a chamber pot next to your head or someone else's elbow in your ribcage. That counts for something. You're not sure what, but it does. You wonder if this is what enlightenment feels like. Lying in the hay, surrounded by creatures who neither judge nor explain themselves, dreaming of warmth and waking to itchy reality, but still choosing to stay. You've survived worse. You probably will again. But for now, you curl deeper into the scratchy, living mound of golden chaos and let the sounds of the barn settle over you like a lullaby written by animals and unwashed feet. Tomorrow, you might return to the hallways and the cold stone and the accusations of loafing. Tomorrow, you might have to explain the hay in your underclothes and the goat hair in your teeth. Tomorrow, you might regret everything, but not tonight. Tonight you are a pilgrim, and this haystack is your shrine. You arrive at the straw-padded corner that someone has optimistically labeled sleeping space, only to find it occupied by a lanky man humming a tune that might be religious or might be about sheep. You're not sure. You ask him if he's assigned here tonight. He tells you yes and also no. You assume this means yes, because that's how decisions work now. The steward arrives a few moments later, huffing, carrying a clipboard made of bark and stubbornness. He reads out names like a priest assigning penance. You listen for yours. It's paired with a candle maker you've seen around, one who always smells faintly of regret and tallow. She nods at you without blinking. Her eyes are wide and tired, as though she's seen things candles were never meant to witness. She carries with her a pillow shaped like a melted wheel of cheese. You do not ask questions. You are now 3 people sharing what can best be described as a hay-stained burlap depression, arranged roughly in the shape of a coffin designed by an indecisive architect. The lute player continues to hum, even as he lies down. It's not music. It's a vibration, a mosquito's love song. You ask if he can stop. He tells you it helps him sleep. You consider telling him it prevents others from sleeping, but realize diplomacy has long since abandoned this building. The candlemaker mutters something under her breath. You make out only the words "last time" and bit me. You hope it was metaphorical. You lie down between them, trying to angle your knees away from theirs and your soul away from your body. It's like trying to fold yourself into an envelope that already contains someone else's dreams and several mismatched socks. The room smells like boiled linen and social compromise. You close your eyes. The lute player shifts. His elbow finds your shoulder like it's searching for a secret door. You scoot an inch toward the candlemaker, who immediately turns to face you. Her breath smells of beeswax and vengeance. You scoot back. The lute player starts to hum again. This time it's slower. You hope this means he's nearing sleep and not building toward a chorus. The tune has no pattern. It loops like a cart stuck in mud. You hum back, just once, to see what happens. He stops. Silence blankets the room like a passive-aggressive fog. Then the candlemaker screams. Not a loud scream, a polite scream. A kind of haunted whisper designed for maximum discomfort. She's asleep, but her face is clenched like a hand gripping a hot poker. She mumbles something about melting and wolves. You nod, quietly, because you too have known the wolves. You try not to think about them. She thrashes. Her arm swings across your chest like she's extinguishing you. The lute player sighs loudly. He sits up and declares, to no one in particular, that this arrangement is not conducive to spiritual alignment. You tell him neither is his humming. He looks wounded, like you've criticized his legacy. The candlemaker moans again and rolls over. Her pillow makes a squelching sound that lives permanently in your spine. You try to find a position that doesn't press your hip bone into the floor like a medieval torture implement. You fail. The lute player hums softly now, as if apologizing to himself. The candlemaker breathes heavily, in syncopation with the draft that wheezes through the gap in the window, like an old man telling a long story. You don't sleep. You hover. Your brain walks laps inside your skull. You count things. The number of breaths between hums, the number of hums before you scream, the number of times the candlemaker mumbles the word burn. You try to meditate. You think about trees. Unfortunately, the trees are cold, and some of them are on fire. You give up. Sometime around the hour where even rats take a break, the lute player finally stops. He's snoring now, gently, like a disappointed father. The candlemaker mutters one last curse into her cheese pillow and stills. You inch away from both of them, finding a triangle of space that might belong to no one. It smells like old onions, but it's yours. You drift. Just as you reach the foggy edge of almost sleep, the lute player shifts again. His foot finds your shin and latches on like a lonely eel. You flinch, but do not move. You know better now. Movement invites attention. Stillness is your armor. At dawn, the steward returns. He announces that tonight's sleeping arrangements will change. You pretend not to hear. The candlemaker opens one eye and whispers, "Good." The lute player asks if he can hum during roll call. You all ignore him. You rise from your shared trough like Lazarus, only itchier. You step into the cold hallway, your limbs stiff from sharing too much space with people who dream too loudly. You wonder if exile would be worse than this. You wonder if the roof is available. You wonder if anyone has ever truly known peace since bed stopped being for one person and started being for three. You wonder what it would be like to sleep alone, truly alone. No humming, no muttering, no incidental spooning from a man named Barrick who says it helps circulation. Just you, a blanket that doesn't smell like stew, and maybe a door that closes all the way. You know you'll never have it, but you allow yourself to want it, just for a moment. You are handed the bed curtains like they are treasure, though they smell more like a crypt that hosted a cheese festival and then gave up. Someone says they once belonged to the dowager's second cousin's illegitimate son, which might explain the stains shaped like family secrets. You thank them with the reverence of someone being handed a slightly cursed relic. It's the nicest thing anyone's given you in months, possibly ever. Aside from that time someone passed you half a turnip and didn't take it back when you sneezed on it. The fabric is rough and faded, a tapestry of old dyes and older regrets. You unfold it carefully, the way one might handle ancient scrolls or the last clean shirt in a war zone. It sighs as you move it, a puff of dust escaping like the ghost of a moth that died of embarrassment. You don't care. You hold the cloth to your chest like it might whisper the secrets of comfort. It doesn't, but it's heavy, and that's almost as good. Your sleeping place is a niche in the wall barely wide enough to lie in, something between a monk's cell and a poorly maintained drawer. You've spent nights here, layered in cloaks, straw, and existential despair. Now, armed with your new relic, you attempt an upgrade. You scrounge up string, twine, and what might be the guts of a broken harp. You fashion a framework of loops and knots, whispering to yourself like a tailor losing his mind mid-seam. Someone watches from the hallway. You tell them this is art. They nod, which could mean anything. The curtain rises, slightly, then falls. You adjust it, threading the fabric through a nail that someone swears was once in Joan of Arc's shoe. The curtain stays. You stand back and regard your work. It looks like a blanket stapled to a confession booth. It is perfect. Inside, it's different. The world softens. The cold doesn't leave, but it negotiates. The wind still whispers through the cracks in the stone, but now it sounds like gossip instead of curses. You tuck yourself in, pulling the curtains around you until you're swaddled like a blessed dumpling. It is dark. It is quiet. It is yours. For a moment, nothing happens. No one hums. No one snores Latin beside you. No one thrashes in the throes of a dream about taxes. You breathe out and realize your breath stays near your face, not carried off into the void. You wiggle your toes, and they don't scream. The curtain is holding in something close to warmth, or at least a memory of it. You consider crying, just a little, but worry it might create condensation. Sleep approaches cautiously, like a stray cat sniffing a stranger's hand. You whisper to it, promising you won't ruin this. It curls beside you. And then you roll over. The curtain moves with you. It wraps around your foot, then your leg. You twitch to free it, and the string holding it up groans like an old man remembering war. You pause, then shift again. Now the curtain is around your neck. Not dangerously, just judgmentally. You feel like a monk being hugged by a cranky tapestry. You don't want to wake the entire wing with your muffled struggles, so you perform a quiet wrestling match with the fabric, flailing only in the ways that don't make noise, which is none of them. Outside, someone coughs. You freeze. The curtain shifts back. A truce. You lie still. Eventually, your body finds a position the curtain agrees with. It's not the one you wanted. Your spine is shaped like a sickle. Your right arm is under your body, and your left foot is hanging halfway into the corridor. But you are blanketed, surrounded, wrapped in a cloth that has seen better centuries. You feel safe, which is odd. You feel hidden. You feel, against all better judgment, luxurious. A rat scratches at the wall beside you. You ignore it. You are behind curtains now. You are not accessible to rats. You are inaccessible in general. You are a person of means. You are the sort of person who closes drapery with one hand and ends conversations with a single look. You are important. You are slightly itchy, but important nonetheless. You sleep. You wake tangled. The curtain has coiled around your midsection like a protective snake or a particularly emotional scarf. One of the ties has wrapped itself around your hair. You sit up and bring half the curtain with you, dragging it behind like a cape of mediocrity. You are a noble, yes, but one who just fell out of a cupboard. But still, you are warmer than before. Not warm, never warm. That is for the lords with their bed warmers and pine-scented superiority. But warmer than you were. You have not dreamed of frost or goats reciting psalms. You have not been sneezed on by someone named Toad. This is progress. Later, someone passes by and glances at your curtain. They raise an eyebrow. You nod sagely, as though you've always had curtains, as though you don't eat turnips with your hands and cry at the idea of heated stones. You are part of the elite now, the curtain class. You have boundaries. For a moment, the world seems almost manageable. Then the steward announces bed reassignments, and your curtain falls, but not before you say goodbye. You slide into the chapel like a guilty thought, silent, hunched, and hoping no one notices the straw in your hood or the crust of something unsanctioned on your sleeve. The stone under your feet is cold enough to hum with ancient judgment, but the air is better here, warmer. Not warm, never warm, but flirtatiously tepid, a kind of spiritual lukewarm. You exhale, and it doesn't fog. You almost cry, but remember that moisture cools. The candles flicker in their sconces, dozens of them, maybe hundreds if you squint and exaggerate. Their little flames wobble like tipsy saints. You sit in the back, a cautious trespasser, and fold your hands in a position that might resemble piety if no one looks too hard. The warmth pools in shallow pockets around the altar. You edge toward it like a cat with a bad past. There's incense in the air, the lingering kind, like someone swung a censer too enthusiastically 2 days ago, and now the smell lives here permanently. It's a mixture of dried herbs, old wood, and spiritual authority. It coats your nose with something between reverence and mildew. You sniff. The heat is worth it. You kneel, mostly for show, and partly because your legs have given up. The pews are too holy for someone with your reputation and visible stains. You arrange your cloak beneath your knees and try not to look like someone who's here to steal candle stubs. You rest your hands on the bench in front of you, palms up, vaguely hopeful. Maybe something divine will fall into them, like a blanket, or hot soup, or the concept of central heating. The monk appears soundlessly. He sits beside you, as if summoned by the scent of confusion and desperation. His robes rustle like pages turning in a heavy book. His beard is the kind of white that comes from years of abstinence and cold stone floors. He folds his hands and begins to pray aloud, gently, in Latin or something that wants to be Latin when it grows up. You freeze, wondering if he's about to call for guards or God. He doesn't. He just prays. For your soul. You glance sideways at him, unsure how he knows you have a soul or that it needs help. You've barely spoken since Lent, and even then it was to argue about boiled onions. Still, the monk speaks as if he's met your soul, possibly in a confessional, possibly in a cautionary tale. You nod, solemnly. Then you pray too. You do not pray for your soul. You pray for firewood, for dry firewood, the rarest of gifts, for coals that glow longer than your hope, for furs that haven't housed fleas with names and grudges, for warmth that doesn't come from sleeping on your own hands or rubbing your arms like a cursed magician. You mumble your request quietly. You try to sound humble. You promise you'll be good, or at least medium bad, if someone sends you warmth. You list your deeds, omitting the ones with witnesses. You offer penance, though you're vague on the details. You don't want to promise fasting when you're already on an unwilling one. The monk finishes his prayer and nods at you, slow and knowing, like he heard your entire conversation with the heavens and chose to forgive your priorities. He rises and walks to the altar, his candle casting a halo that bounces off the icons like gossip. You stay kneeling, partly for devotion, mostly because standing up sounds hard. Time slides. You watch the wax drip. It moves with the kind of pace usually reserved for glaciers and unpaid debts. Your back begins to ache in theological protest. You shift, careful not to offend any saints. The chapel stays warmish. Your toes no longer feel like cursed pebbles. Your fingers regain sensation and immediately regret it. You are, for a brief moment, almost comfortable. A mouse scuttles across the floor near the altar. You salute it, mentally. Survivors. Respect. Survivors. The monk returns and offers you a small piece of bread. You accept it like it's communion and not a pity snack. It is dry, but not cold. You chew in silence. He sits again. Neither of you speaks. This is peace. Eventually, the candles begin to dwindle. One by one, they gutter out like tiny martyrs. The air cools, slightly. You panic. Not visibly. Not enough to shatter the sacred mood. But your eyes dart to the exits, like you've just remembered how brutal night can be. The monk notices. He nods again, that eternal, patient gesture of someone who's been cold for 30 winters and found God somewhere around the 5th frostbite. You rise, bow, and whisper thanks. The monk doesn't reply, but he blesses you with the smallest flick of 2 fingers. It's more than you expected. It's more than you usually get. You exit the chapel slowly, letting the warmth cling to you like a final embrace. The hallway hits you like a tax. Cold, sharp, uninvited. Your breath fogs again, a mournful cloud of resignation. But something clings to you. Not heat, exactly, but the memory of it. Back in your quarters, which are less quarters and more a geographical suggestion, you settle into your hay pile and draw your rags over your knees. Your hands still hold the shape of prayer. Your cloak smells faintly of incense. You close your eyes and imagine candles. 100 tiny suns. You dream of them burning forever. They do not, but for a while, you believe. You find the stone on accident. It's just lying there near the courtyard, half buried in frost and regret, shaped like something a bored god would skip across the sea. It looks flat, roughly the size of your hope, and you pick it up with fingers already stiff from another morning of betrayal by wind. The stone is not warm. It is, in fact, aggressively not warm. But you remember what the stable boy said in passing last week, in that tone people use when they're either joking or revealing ancient, peasant-coded wisdom. Heat the stone. Sleep with the stone. Love the stone. You are not proud. You take it to the hearth in the kitchen, where the coals live like tiny dying suns, and you lay it there like an offering. The cooks do not stop you. One of them raises an eyebrow, but she's too tired to care and too cold to throw hands. You sit near it for a while, guarding your new treasure like a suspicious raccoon with a shiny thing. The fire licks the stone's edge gently. The heat seeps in slowly, grudgingly, as if the stone is remembering summer for the first time since Charlemagne. You wait hours, possibly decades. Time in the castle is measured in shivers and sneezes, not sundials. Eventually, when the coals have sung their last sad lullaby and the cook is sweeping ash with a look that says she will stab anyone who tries to boil anything else today, you wrap the stone in the cleanest bit of linen you can steal without divine judgment. You hold it to your chest like an ugly sacred infant and whisper its name, Gregory. You don't know why, but it feels right. Gregory is a stone of dignity, a stone of reliability. Gregory is, at this moment, more emotionally available than any member of your actual family. Back in your corner of the world, which is technically a shared alcove between the storage closet and the room where someone allegedly died last year, you settle in with Gregory. The blanket is still itchy. The draft still sings through the walls like a vengeful bard, but Gregory is warm, radiantly, defiantly warm. You tuck him under your tunic and press him to your ribs. You exhale for the first time in hours without seeing your own soul leave your mouth. Gregory is love. Gregory is life. Your bedmates stare, but say nothing. Perhaps they too once had a Gregory. You do not share him. Not yet. Gregory is still in the honeymoon phase. And besides, sharing warmth in the castle is an act of political maneuvering you're not prepared for. You've seen fights break out over less. One time someone coughed over a bowl of porridge and was nearly excommunicated. You sleep curled around your stone like a dragon around its hoard, daring anyone to challenge your new lifestyle. The night passes, not pleasantly, but survivably. You do not wake up with frost in your eyebrows, or a nose that feels like it's trying to fall off your face. Your hands are still attached. Your toes register faint tingles of existence. Gregory cools slowly, like a friend who knows how to leave without making it awkward. In the morning, you stretch with a stiffness that implies you are mostly made of wood, and you lift Gregory reverently. He is no longer warm, but he carries the memory of it, and so do you. You return to the hearth. It's still barely alive, a few embers trying to decide if they want to exist today. The cook sees you and sighs, but again, says nothing. You place Gregory in the ashes like you're baptizing him in the Holy Spirit of not dying tonight. You pat him once and whisper encouragement. Someone else sees. A boy from the outer kitchens, maybe 12 winters old and already shaped like a question mark. He eyes your ritual, then scurries off. By evening, there are 4 stones nestled beside Gregory, all different shapes, all wearing cloth wraps like they're in a rock convent. You don't say anything. You just nod at their owners, and they nod back. No words are exchanged. A warmth cult has been born. Each night, Gregory returns to you with a slightly sooty face and the lingering heat of quiet miracles. You sleep with him like a scandal. Sometimes you think about writing a song for him, but you only know how to hum, and the last person caught singing near the barracks was roped into permanent entertainment duty, which involves a lot of dancing and not enough food. Instead, you keep the relationship private, intimate. You polish him with your sleeve and murmur stories into his rocky little ears. He listens. You imagine, at times, that he responds, usually with silence, occasionally with silence that feels more judgmental than usual. One night, during an especially brutal cold snap, where the wind screams through the cracks in the walls like it's auditioning for a haunting, Gregory is gone. Panic is instant and volcanic. You turn over every hay pile and insult every rat you see. Your blanket is no comfort. Your tunic offers betrayal instead of insulation. You demand answers from the cook, who tells you to sit down before she throws you in the stew. You sit, heartbroken. You suspect treason, theft, spiritual kidnapping. Your soul drafts a will. Gregory returns the next morning, delivered by a sheepish-looking shepherd's apprentice who thought the stones were communal. You take him back with the kind of forgiveness usually reserved for saints and very dumb relatives. He is colder, but not unloved. From then on, you tie a bit of ribbon around him, a piece of red wool you found near the laundry. Gregory wears it like a badge. Others start tying ribbons too. The hearth becomes a gallery of low-status affection, red and blue and even one daring green. The cook considers banning it. Then she finds her own stone, names it Hubert, and tells you she gets it now. Gregory never speaks, but you think, if he did, he'd tell you he's proud. You hear of the blanket before you see it. Word spreads through the servants' quarters like lice at a solstice feast. Someone has cracked warmth. There's talk of feathers, of sewing, of insulation so divine it might have offended a bishop. You pretend not to care, but you listen too hard when the baker's boy whispers about floating softness and heat like a mother's hug. You roll your eyes in public and dream about it in private. The inventor is a thatcher's apprentice with a limp and the stubborn gleam of someone who's been cold too long and has nothing left to lose. His name might be Edwin or something equally medieval and unwashed. He has thread, he has time, and, crucially, he has access to the goose shed. No one knows how many geese he bribes, wrestles, or prays over. The details are hazy. What's clear is that he emerges one day holding what looks like a large, lumpy quilt and what sounds like a quiet wheeze of triumph. The thing flaps slightly in the breeze, like it remembers its former life. You squint. You are not sure it counts as a blanket. You are not sure it counts as anything that should exist. It's patched together from burlap sacks, scraps of curtain, and 2 mystery fabrics that make your skin itch when you look at them too long. But it is clearly full of feathers. You can see them shifting like lazy ghosts inside their cloth prison. The entire contraption pulses slightly when the wind hits it, like it's trying to breathe. He calls it the cloud. You want to mock it. You're ready. You have 3 jokes preloaded. But then the boy curls up inside it near the hearth, and within seconds he looks peaceful, not just asleep, transcendent. You haven't seen peace like that since the Lord's dog stole a pheasant and ate it in full view of the steward. You stare, you salivate, you seethe, others gather, whispers bloom into open envy. Someone pokes the blanket and gets hissed at. Someone else offers half a turnip for 5 minutes inside. Edwin declines all offers and sleeps the sleep of a man who is warm and smug and 17 minutes away from disaster. Disaster arrives, as it always does, loudly and inappropriately. It begins with a crackle, a spark from the hearth, a single, ambitious ember. The blanket doesn't catch fire, but it doesn't not catch fire. A corner blackens. Edwin jerks awake. Someone screams. The blanket puffs. Not burns, puffs. Feathers erupt with the enthusiasm of a century of suppressed emotion. They swirl through the kitchen like holy confusion, filling noses and mouths and a large pot of cabbage stew. The room becomes a blizzard of betrayal. You inhale what feels like an entire wing. Someone sneezes so hard they knock over a chair. The cook curses in 5 languages and 2 forgotten dialects. When it's over, Edwin sits in the middle of the carnage, dazed and blanketed in his own creation's failure. The warmth is gone. The feathers are not. The blanket, such as it is, now resembles a tired sack stuffed with remorse. It wheezes when you touch it. You feel sorry for it, and for him, and for the hope you didn't know you were nursing. You help gather feathers in silence. They stick to your sleeves, your hair, your sense of dignity. A single one floats down the front of your tunic and lodges itself near your ribs like a cold insult. Edwin tries to explain what went wrong, something about stitching patterns and the explosive tendencies of tightly compressed down. No one listens. They are too busy picking fluff out of their eyes and wondering whether shame has a scent. Later that night, you pass him in the corridor. He is wrapped in what remains of his invention, looking like a man who's just lost a duel to a bird. You nod. He nods back. You do not speak of the incident. Some things are too raw, too recent, too full of sneezing, but you admire him. Not out loud, of course. That would be unthinkable. But in your heart, you acknowledge his courage. He tried. He looked at the ice-coated walls of this god-forsaken castle, the sleepless nights, the sound of teeth chattering in the dark like haunted castanets, and he said, "No, I will sew feathers to burlap and dare the gods to stop me." And the gods did, spectacularly, but for a moment, he was warm. And for a moment, you believed. That counts for something. The blanket is never repaired. The feathers are mostly swept away or eaten by rats with luxury preferences. One of the scullery maids wears a feather in her hair for 3 days before it wilts with humiliation and falls into the stew. But the legend remains. The younger servants speak of it in hushed tones, like a fairy tale or a warning. The cloud, the warmth that lived for 1 brief hour and then exploded like hope in a thunderstorm. You catch Edwin occasionally staring into the middle distance, as if imagining version 2. You hope he tries again. You do not offer help. You do not wish to be part of another airborne poultry incident. Still, at night, you lie beneath your own miserable collection of rags and straw, and you think of feathers. You think of softness. You think of a world where blankets are more than heavy lies and damp inheritance. You think of the inventor and his fluffy disaster, and you smile. Just a little. Just enough to fog the air. You no longer curse the cold when you wake up. You nod at it. It nods back. You've reached a level of mutual understanding usually reserved for exes or goats. The cold no longer surprises you, no longer creeps in with malice or betrayal. It's there when you open your eyes, when you stretch your aching limbs, when you roll over onto a patch of floor that could qualify as a glacier. You do not flinch. You do not shriek. You sigh. A long, frosty sigh that crystallizes in the air like a shrug made visible. At some point, you stopped waiting for it to end. There was no ceremony, no dramatic monologue, no final tantrum. One evening you simply lay down beneath your 5 layers of thin regret, pulled the rag blanket up to your chin, and whispered, "Fine." You stopped picturing sun-warmed stones. You stopped dreaming of wool-lined slippers and the mythical sensation of feeling your toes. You gave up on hope and made room for function. Now, instead of stuffing straw into your boots, you line them with your own expectations and tamp them down until they no longer itch. Your cloak smells like sour smoke and cabbage memory, and you wear it like armor. Your sleeves are stiff with whatever history has seeped into them, but you roll them up anyway and face the day like a condemned man with chores. You move differently now, not slowly, but deliberately. Every step, a silent negotiation with the weather. You've learned to keep your shoulders hunched just right, trapping what little body heat still bothers to visit. You've figured out how to hold a cup so your fingers steal warmth without the cup noticing. You sip your gruel with the patience of a monk and the precision of a frostbitten surgeon. You speak less. Words are warm, and you don't waste warmth. You nod more, grunt occasionally. Communication is now a game of minimalism. You can have entire conversations with eye movements and the occasional shiver. Everyone else is too cold to care. Even the rats seem subdued. They no longer scurry with enthusiasm. They mosey. You've caught one or two just sitting still, staring at nothing, tails curled inwards like they too have made peace with the endless frost. You nod at them. They nod back. This is your tribe now. You've stopped checking the firewood pile. It's not that you don't want fire. It's that you no longer believe in it as a concept, like dragons or dry socks. The hearth is just a hole in the wall now, something to aim your despair at when you feel poetic. You stack stones in it sometimes, for symmetry. It helps. The cold has taught you things no tutor ever could. You know the exact moment your breath turns to mist. You've learned which parts of your body will go numb first, and in what order. You've memorized the sound of your own teeth clicking together like a tiny, depressed orchestra. You have become a scholar of your own misery, an expert in the field of frost. Others still resist. You see it in the new arrivals, the ones with soft cheeks and softer dreams. They stomp their feet. They huff into their hands. They speak of the cold like it's a problem to be solved. You don't say anything. You just watch. Eventually, they'll figure it out. It can't be solved. It can only be invited in. Your dreams have adapted. Gone are the hallucinations of tropical shores or fur-lined cloaks. Now you dream of slightly less cold, of lukewarm stone, of bathwater that doesn't feel like betrayal. Sometimes you dream of holding a loaf of bread straight from the oven. You wake up smiling, then you wake up fully, and the smile flakes off like frost from your chin. You no longer hate the night. You respect it. It comes as it always does, with indifference and ice. You bundle up and greet it like an old enemy who once stabbed you but now plays cards with you on Thursdays. You sleep when you can, in pockets of warmth found between breath and body heat, and the rags you've layered like desperate hope. Someone offers you a place by the fire one evening. You decline. You tell them you're comfortable, which is a lie, but also somehow true. You sit by the wall instead, your back pressed to the stones, your hands tucked beneath your armpits like forgotten prayers. The fire crackles. It sounds arrogant. You don't need it. You've gone beyond needing things. Warmth, comfort, sleep uninterrupted by your own spine squealing. These are luxuries for people who still believe. You have evolved. You are frost compatible now. You begin to notice beauty again, not in grand ways, but in subtle ones. The way light bends through a frozen window pane, the shape of your breath as it coils in the dark, the tiny ice crystals forming along the rim of your cup like nature's cruel garnishes. You begin to find a kind of peace in the stillness. The castle is quieter in winter, less stomping, more huddling. People speak softer. They don't want to waste heat on yelling. You're not happy. Exactly. But you've stopped expecting to be, and there's freedom in that. One morning, you wake to find frost on your eyelashes. You blink it away and smile. You are the frost. You are the cold. You are what survives. You take the shift no one wants. Night watch. Everyone groans when it's mentioned, like it's a death sentence wrapped in boredom. But you see something they don't. You see motion. You see solitude. You see an escape from the symphony of nighttime noises, a harmony of snores, coughs, prayers, and gastrointestinal despair. You say yes before they finish asking. You are bold. You are desperate. They hand you a torch that sputters like it regrets being born. It lights just enough to make the darkness seem thicker. You step onto the ramparts, stone beneath your feet, sky above your head, and wind trying to convince you to turn around. You do not. You are moving now. And movement is better than being a lump of cold flesh sandwiched between two humans who both snore in harmony and argue in dreams. The cold here is different. It is not the damp, creeping chill of stone walls and mildew dreams. It is clean, honest, brutal, in a way that feels refreshing. It hits your cheeks like a slap from an old friend who wants you to wake up. Your eyes water. Your nose surrenders. Your fingers begin negotiations with the inside of your sleeves. You do not mind. You walk the length of the wall, boots scraping softly against frost-covered stone. Your breath comes out in clouds that drift away like vague regrets. The torch flickers. You hold it high, not because it helps, but because it feels noble. You imagine yourself as a guardian of the realm, protector of the slumbering masses, keeper of the draft. Really, you're just cold and trying not to trip. The stars are brighter than they have any right to be. They press into the sky like someone poked holes in the heavens with a very determined quill. You've never seen them like this. There's a stillness to the night that is not empty, but full, like a pause in a story you didn't know you were part of. The wind whistles past your ears with tales it picked up from mountaintops. You nod politely. You don't understand the language, but you respect the effort. Below, the castle sleeps. You see the faint orange glow of the kitchen embers, the dark outline of the chapel roof, the squat huddle of servant quarters that always smell like cabbage and minor betrayal. Somewhere down there, someone is snoring with purpose. Somewhere, someone has stolen the last dry blanket. You do not envy them. Up here, there is clarity. You pass a small brazier, half lit and shivering. It tries to help. You thank it with your eyes and move on. Standing still would make the cold personal again. As long as you walk, it remains a general sensation, not a targeted attack. You become a machine of circulation, a rhythm of limbs and frost. Your legs ache, but at least they feel something. Your arms cling to your ribs like loyal guards. You spot a fox near the outer wall. It pauses, looks up, then continues its trot across the snow-dusted field. It has places to be, probably warmer than yours. You nod at it. It does not nod back, but you sense the acknowledgement. There's kinship in survival, especially the shivering kind. Eventually, you stop at the northern turret. It's the highest point, the windiest, and the least liked. But from here, you can see the world. Forests stretch out like spilled ink. The hills roll in slow, frozen waves. A river glints in the moonlight like it swallowed a silver coin and forgot how to spit. You lean on the wall, exhale slowly, and for a moment, you are not cold. You are a witness, a temporary piece of something ancient and uncaring, but beautiful. The wind howls again, reminding you that poetry has a cost. You pull your cloak tighter. It doesn't help, but you do it anyway. Somewhere a bell chimes softly. You wonder who decided it was necessary to have bells at this hour. Probably someone who sleeps with 2 bed warmers and a wool-wrapped conscience. You pace the wall again, humming quietly. A tune you don't remember learning. It keeps time with your steps and distracts your toes from their desire to detach and flee south. The torch dies with a final sigh. You let it go. The stars are enough. You have never trusted fire anyway. Too fleeting, too smug. As the sky begins to bruise with the hint of dawn, The cold takes on a new flavor, less sharp, more resigned, like it knows its time is up, but won't leave without one last insult. You welcome it. You walk slower now, letting the horizon bleed light. The castle stirs, a rooster coughs, someone shouts about turnips. You do not hurry back. You savor the last few moments alone with the sky. Eventually, someone appears on the wall behind you, bundled and bleary-eyed, holding a fresh torch like they expect applause. You hand over the job without ceremony. They nod. You nod. No one speaks. Words are for people who haven't shared a night with the stars. You descend the stairs, your bones humming with cold and pride. You are tired. You are frozen. You are clean. No snores, no farts, no elbows to the ribs, just stars and silence. And for one brief, perfect night, that was enough. One morning, you wake up, and something is wrong. But not the usual wrong. Not the cold in your marrow or toad snoring on your ankle kind of wrong. It's a quiet, confusing kind of wrong. Your eyes open. Your breath is not visible. Your fingers move without snapping off. The blanket, that itchy, grimy, questionably alive beast, is not frozen into its usual burrito of despair. It molds gently around you, like it too has finally given up. The stone floor, the one that usually radiates the same warmth as a tax collector's heart, now feels tolerable. The air smells faintly of bread, not smoke or mildew. You blink into the sunlight, real sunlight, coming through the narrow slit in the wall that generously calls itself a window. It does not feel aggressive. It feels yellow. It feels like possibility. You shift under your covers and discover that Gregory, the hearth-warmed stone you adopted 3 months ago in a moment of frost-bitten madness, is still warm, not scalding, not lukewarm, but gently radiant, like a good memory or an overly long hug from someone with boundary issues. You hold him to your chest and stare at the sunbeam slanting across the stone wall, dust motes dancing in it like drunk fairies on their last night out. You sit up slowly, expecting the usual bone crackle symphony. But your spine, while still deeply skeptical, doesn't protest in the familiar language of pain. Your toes, traitorous things that they are, have not curled into icy resignation. You wiggle them. They wiggle back. You look down at your clothes, still layered, still absurd, still smelling of wood smoke, wool, and crushed hope, but no longer stiff with night frost. You survived. You did not freeze into a forgotten lump in the servants' hall. You did not vanish during a desperate midnight migration to the chapel or the kitchens or that one blessed hayloft. You did not wake up adhered to the wall again. You lived. Somehow, you lived. You swing your legs over the side of your mattress, straw-filled sack, but this morning it feels luxurious, and plant your feet on the ground. There's no sharp intake of breath, no wincing, no sprint dash to find your boots like a medieval game show where the prize is dignity. Your boots are where you left them. They are dry. Someone has already stirred the fire. You didn't hear them, but the embers are glowing, not sulking. You hear someone humming, not groaning, not wheezing, humming. You squint toward the hallway. The rat you usually whisper goodnight to has found something to nibble and seems content. Even the fleas are sluggish, as if rethinking their life choices. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders, not out of necessity, but out of habit, and step into the corridor. The stone beneath your feet does not punish. It greets. The hallway draft is still there, but it's less of a slap and more of a nudge, like an elderly aunt reminding you to stand up straight. The castle feels different, not transformed. There are still puddles where puddles should not be, and the tapestry by the stairwell still smells like wet goat. But there is an undertone of softness, like the stone walls are taking a deep breath after holding it all winter, like the air has loosened its grip on your lungs. You walk outside, barefoot because you want to feel it. The courtyard is damp, but not cruel. There are tiny green things clawing their way through cracks in the stones, defiant and ridiculous. A bird sings a note that sounds suspiciously smug. You squint at it, It does not care. The sky is not gray. It is not white. It is not threatening to collapse on you like a badly hung tapestry. It is, impossibly, blue. Not clear, not cloudless, but blue in that washed-out, hesitant way that skies get when they are trying again. A second draft of weather. The sun is out. The sun is working. Someone yells from the fields that a lamb has been born. You do not see it, but you believe them. You would believe anything right now. Someone else shouts that the river has thawed, that someone has shed their second tunic, that someone left their blanket off during a nap and did not perish. The rumors are true. Spring has arrived, not with trumpets, not with miracles, just less suffering. You go back inside. Gregory is still warm. You place him on the ledge like a retiree on vacation. You don't need him tonight. Not really. Maybe just to talk to. Out of loyalty. You sit by the hearth with a crust of bread that is only mostly stale. The fire crackles in a friendly, conversational tone. You are not warm, but you are warmer. And the difference feels like waking up. The chapel bell rings, not in mourning, not in warning, but in celebration. A baby cries. A dog barks. Someone sneezes without cursing afterward. You look around and realize the world has cracked open just enough to let you breathe. You are not dead. You are not frozen. You are, against considerable odds, alive, and it's finally not awful.